Please join me. Gracious Lord, we thank you for once again helping us through the storm. Thank you for putting your hand upon us and protecting us, especially Alderman Davis as she faced her tree on her home. Lord, thank you for the different individuals and groups that helped us last night with our police chief and the fire department, our EMS, our police chief, and then especially our public works. Lord, thank you for these blessings. Be with us now as we do your will. Amen.
All right, do I have a motion to accept the agenda? Do we have a motion and a second? All in favor, say aye, please. Any opposed? Thank you. The first agenda item is the overview of issues needing to be resolved by the city manager.
Good morning, everybody, and I appreciate County Manager Steve Stone being with us this morning. There's a lot of information here, and I know especially for Mark, Rebecca, and Frank, this could be information overload. But if we are to proceed with starting the negotiations with the county, I need a lot of questions answered from all of you so that I'm working in the right direction to get this done. And so very briefly, you did hear the results from the water merger feasibility study, but there was never direction given on whether there should be a merger. You did with the sewer, but not with the water, so that's one thing. Lance, our finance director, realized there's $1.263 million of ARPA funds, and he'll explain this, that were put into the water sewer to make up for some revenue, but should that be transferred, and again, this is your decision, towards either general fund or resurfacing of roads, for example, or to make up for some of the money that we need to move from water sewer over to the general fund. So there's lots of options, and we'll get more into that. Teresa, our utility person, and Tom in Public Services will be going over those positions that they would like to keep instead of having them go to the county, so we need some decisions on that one. And then use of fund balance, and Lance Flint will go over all of the different fund balances we have so that you'll understand that. And then lastly, collection of other fees. There are other fees that get collected. Are we going to continue with those services? Where are the payments going to be made? Lots of smaller things. In the first item, only because he's pressed for time, I did want to talk to you about is, in speaking with the town manager of Charlotte, Mimi had told me that attorney Mac McCarley was the attorney that they used for their merger, and it went extremely well. And certainly it's a very specialized field to help us with this merger and negotiations and putting together a final document. So I wanted to have, is he on, Cheyenne? So I wanted to have him come on so he could introduce himself. I know you have a written background, and he did have a proposal, and then you could ask him questions. And the only reason I need him to go first is he has to be off by 9:45, that's all. So we'll see if he can link in here.
I have got you on our speaker system so that the board can hear you if you have any questions while they're presenting.
Got it. Thank you.
Can we see him, or no, we're not going to be able to?
I don't have a camera access to.
Okay, so yeah, because that would be a little better. There he is. Good morning, sir. I don't think he can hear me.
You'll still have to talk into the microphone.
Okay.
So this isn't a two-way, so I'll have him on this microphone at the back.
All right.
And there might be, like, his words might not align with his screen, but it is him.
Okay. Good morning, Attorney McCauley. It's Bonnie talking. All right, good morning. How are you? Now, we can't hear him. Hold on one sec.
Try that again, Attorney.
All right, we'll try one more time. Good morning.
All right. Good morning to you.
yeah.
How are you today?
Good. How are you? This is Bonnie. Nice to meet you finally. I kind of did a quick overview, but why don't you give the board some background information on yourself and what your proposal is to work with us as the city. So, because I know you're on a time crunch here.
I am. I'm going to need to sign off at about 9:45.
Correct.
My name is Mac McCarley. I'm a North Carolina native, went to Chapel Hill for undergrad and law school. My first job out of law school was with the League of Municipalities as a lawyer lobbyist. I did that for 4 years. And then I went to Greenville, North Carolina as the city attorney. Served there for 13 years before going to Charlotte in 1994 as the city attorney and served there as city attorney for 17 years. When I retired from Charlotte, I then went to Parker Poe as a partner in the government and public policy practice group and stayed with them for 10 years, doing probably 90-95% of my work was for local governments, not just in North Carolina, but across the country. And I retired from Parker Poe about a year ago, and I now do two things. The day after I retired from the law firm, I opened a PLLC to do this kind of work. And I also started my new half-time in-house job as the town attorney for Southern Pines. My wife has decided that practicing local government law is my hobby, and I think she's probably right. But unlike most people, my hobby pays me instead of me paying for my hobby. It's cheaper than golf. My water work is relatively extensive. It started with a case in the U.S. Supreme Court, South Carolina versus North Carolina, over water use in the Catawba River. That was a fascinating experience, but I've also done work for another community in your county to merge a system. I worked with Shallotte to merge their system into the county. I've also done work representing Union County on a challenge to their interbasin transfer, taking water out of Lake Tillery and shipping it to Union County for their use. I've also done work for the city of Sanford, did an interlocal agreement among Sanford, Holly Springs, and Fuquay-Varina for Fuquay and Holly Springs to purchase an undivided portion of an expansion of the water treatment plant in Sanford to provide water for those two Wake County communities, and have recently finished a merger of the Pittsboro utility system into Sanford's system, and am currently in the middle of a project to merge the Siler City utility system into the Sanford water and sewer system. So I've got some experience doing this kind of work and would be glad to work with y'all.
Does anybody from the board have any questions for him? Go ahead.
It sounds like you've lots and lots of experience, and you're working with several different municipalities right now. What kind of time do you have to be able to allocate to Southport to make sure that we're not at the bottom of the barrel when we're going through this process?
Great question. My half-time job at Southern Pines is relatively easy to handle. And the work with the county is relatively easy. Brunswick County has done a number of these, so they know what they're doing. It's not new ground for them, and it's not new ground for me. So I think we'll have a fairly easy go of it unless there are specific problems that you anticipate.
Are there any other questions? How long do you think this will take to do? Okay.
That's hard to say. A short version would be 4 months. A long version might be 7 or 8, but that's only if some unique features come up or if, and I'll be really frank with you, if you decide you want to do some sort of extensive public participation process to have meetings or hearings or anything else, that can add time to it. But if it's just the negotiation with the county, that's the short version of probably 4 months to have an agreement ready for vote on your table and their table.
How long did Charlotte take?
Charlotte took probably 7 or 8 months, but that was because we had to do some rate issues with them. They decided they wanted to subsidize the county's new rate for a short while, and that required working with the local government commission to spend down, basically get permission to spend down some of the reserves of the system to subsidize that rate. And that added probably 4 months to the process.
When did Charlotte go through that merger process?
You're going to test my memory. I think we finished it about 2 years ago, but I'm guessing. I'm not good at remembering dates.
By spend down specifically, what were you talking about there?
Charlotte had some significant reserves in their system, and they decided that rather than immediately raise the rates to their customers based on the county's increase of the rate a couple of years ago, Charlotte decided that they would subsidize that rate by trying to keep their rate to their customers at whatever the rate was going to be as a new county customer, as opposed to the higher rate that it would have been if Charlotte had not merged with the county system. So they covered that gap between what the rate with the county would have been when the county raised their rates to what the rate was going to be when the people of Charlotte became full county customers. And they funded that gap with town funds. But because they were spending down the reserves, we needed agreement from both Brunswick County and from the local government commission. The LGC does not like to see you spend down reserves.
How much,
So we had,
can you qualify how much they had in reserves?
honestly, I don't remember, but it was several $1 million. And I think we ended up spending close to $800,000, but don't hold me to those numbers.
When Charlotte did this transfer, I assume they also had employees that were dedicated to the sewer, to the sewer project, that will now, their jobs were going away because it was going to the county. Did those positions go to the county, or how did that work out?
Interestingly enough, Charlotte only transferred the water system. They kept the sewer system, which also made it a little bit difficult to figure out what assets transferred. For example, if you've got a pickup truck, is it part of the water system or the sewer system or both? But all of their employees who were purely water system employees transferred, and there was no issue with that with the county.
But to confirm, those people were then became county employees.
That is correct.
Thank you.
To be really specific, one of their employees retired rather than moved to the county, but they anticipated that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
All right, Mac, then we will talk about it, and I'll get back to you as soon as I have a decision from the board. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, and glad to be with you.
Examples of an agreement that the county might have with Shalot or some other municipality that's done this merger? I'm not sure that we're privileged to it, but if the county would share that with us, it might help us.
I think I already have Shalot's. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
And then I'll see if I can get some more.
Mr. Stone, did it go well?
Overall, a small amount of back and forth discussion, but nothing. The only thing that I would deem to have been sort of unusual in that particular situation was the fact that the Shalot alderman did decide during the interim period while we were having the discussions that they, in essence, would use those reserve funds to buy down their retail rate to make it equivalent to the counties. And what Mr. McCarley said was correct. The local government commission wasn't real excited about them doing that, but we were fine with it. Obviously, that reduced the amount of cash that was going to come to the county, but it really wasn't material to us one way or the other.
Okay, thank you, sir. What are we talking about in cost?
He is proposing, again, we are all in the wrong business, $495 an hour. He said that is a reduced rate, so.
And can I ask, Grace Dyers wrote the agreement that we have now with the county, and so I wonder why we didn't seek him out.
Well, actually, it's because he had so much experience, and Manager Mimi gave us such a glowing review, and he had such recent experience with doing mergers with them, knows their city attorney, county attorney really well. That's why I went with that. And the fees for this would be taken out of the water sewer fund.
At this point, are you looking for a vote on this?
I think we do need to make a decision if you want, because if you want me, for example, to look at other people, then I've got to do it quick, because we need an attorney on board so I can start. Or if you're comfortable with him, then you could vote to move forward with him.
All right. Is there anybody who would like to make a motion?
No, I did not put that for there.
Yeah.
It would really, it would really just be to appoint him as the city attorney or to ask the city manager to develop other proposals and bring them back for the board's review. Simple and sweet.
I kind of feel like this is the guy, right? I mean, like, he seems to be the most experienced in what we need right now, and regardless of what he costs, you pay for the experience, not the time, not that particular time, but all the years of experience that go with it.
No, I'm very comfortable. The number $495 doesn't mean anything to us. We've got $12 million cash that's just going to go to the county if we don't use it. And this is to benefit both of us. So I see us, investing this money in a wise way. I'll make the motion to appoint Max McCarley as the attorney for negotiating and developing legal document with the county, and appoint the city manager to
Yeah, I'll,
sign any contracts with
yeah,
him?
that would
Okay.
be fine, because he's got a proposal, so.
We have a motion on the floor. We have a second by, Mr. Spencer already did that. Okay. So any discussion? All in favor, say aye, and please raise your hand. Any opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you very much.
The next topic, it'll be our finance director, Lance Flint, and he will be giving you a very in-depth financial overview of fund balance.
morning. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to look at this documentation that came out. I'll say that this is, there's a lot going on here, as we all know. So let's see if we can unpack just a little bit of it. We're going to kind of take this in a couple sections. The first section, we're going to talk about sort of the annual ongoing costs and savings, and then we're going to talk about the long-term costs and the capital needs that could be avoided in a merger and what the cost savings of that would be. What am I doing here, Cheyenne?
There you go.
This advances? Okay. All right, so there are benefits and challenges to this merger. We've talked a lot about the benefits, the savings that the customers will incur. We've not yet talked about a lot of the challenges. The attorney has framed out a few of the things that we've been dealing with, you know, how you segregate your assets, those sort of things. The computer's a little bit out of my way here. Computer is not picking up. Thank you. Okay, so benefits we all know about. We're going to see significant customer utility cost savings. I think we all saw some of the estimates that the water sewer feasibility study did. We kind of redid those ourselves at a really detailed level. We pulled a year's worth of customer consumption by account. All the gallons, we looked at what size their water meter is, and we modeled a year's worth of actual consumption by customer with the prevailing Southport rates and the prevailing Brunswick County rates. And it shows that your typical city resident that has a 3/4 inch water meter who has water and sewer service, we ignored those that have irrigation in this number, but that's a big number too. Your typical person would save about $775 a year on their utility bills in a merger. Now, the water sewer fund, what the people pay on their water bills, it pays for a lot more than just a direct service. It pays for more than just the purchase of the water and the purchase of the sewer. It funds the rest of the city services that go into and are required to deliver this utility service. And when we take away the funding that pays for all of that, we're left with a funding gap of about $1.3 to $1.4 million in a full merger. As Bonnie pointed out, the question has not been yet decided officially about the water merger, so we've run these numbers to show you what it would be if we keep water versus if we keep neither.
Can I ask you a question here?
Sir.
To make sure I'm tracking what you just talked about. So we have people's salaries, other than I think 4 employees for sewer, that they're partially paid for.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So you have that figure over here. And then you have the 4 employees that theoretically would go to the county. So that would be a savings on one side of the ledger, and this cost would be the other. Is that the $1.35 million you're talking about? That's the delta between the two of those numbers?
Yes, it is. That's the net. That is the. There's slides for all of this just ahead.
Okay.
To show you all the details
Okay.
on a person-by-person basis. But that is of all the costs that are currently paid for by the Water Sewer Fund. Those are the costs that would not go away in a merger. Okay. I've got a whole list. We'll get to that just in one second. So we've talked about. I just talked briefly about how we did this. We took a year's worth of data. We pulled it to figure out what the customer savings would be, to project it based on current consumption and current rates.
On that topic, I just want to make sure, because we've had these discussions multiple times. You're looking at the usage from the house meter as opposed to the total number of liquid that goes out the door and goes up the street,
That's right.
which includes the I&I.
We pulled thousands of individual meters by month.
So we're
Address.
not counting the I&I costs.
We are not counting.
Okay,
that.
all right, thank you.
So your typical resident, we said was $775 a month. That breaks down to $583, excuse me, on sewer and $192 on water. When you look at across all customers, commercial customers, residential customers, those inside and those outside of city limits, in aggregate, everybody that's buying water and sewer services from the city today, you're looking at about a $3.4 million aggregate savings of what would be paid on their bills in a full merger. That's about 53% of the dollars that are being paid today. If you only merge sewer and you keep water and you keep the prevailing rates as they are today, you're looking at about a $2.2 million all-in aggregate savings, or about 56% of the dollars that would be paid for sewer today. We've got a lot of detail here. It's just probably too much to go over in this much detail, but it's here. It tells you, this is the synopsis of all of our analysis on the rates. We looked at that the county bills different rates by different water meter sizes. The city does not, but the city does bill different rates if you're inside or outside of city limits. So we had to merge those two together. So we had to look at each individual meter, its individual situation, where it is inside or outside city limits, and the size of the meter. And we then applied the prevailing rates across 12 months of actual history. And this is the result. So everyone across the board saves money, with one exception. And that is, we have one commercial customer, which is the marina, Morningside Marina, that has a 6-inch water main. And Brunswick County's current prevailing policy is that a 6-inch water main has to pay for at least a minimum of 500,000 gallons a month. Marina uses nowhere near 500,000 gallons a month. So this one customer, if the county applies its current policy to this one customer, we'll see its water and sewer costs essentially double.
Do we know why they have I assume that goes back to the yesteryear when the pipe was put in, as opposed to Morningstar didn't have that put in for themselves, did they? That's an old pipe?
It's been there. Tom,
Yeah.
you need to go
I spoke with Eric King of Morningstar, and because I was questioning him about it, because I was thinking that fire line was on there as well. It is not. It is actually their 6-inch meter. They have supplying water to the entire marina from back in the day, he said that's what they use. I mean, it's just what they have, 6-inch meter.
So in theory, if they're not using that much and it doesn't go to fire suppression, they could put a smaller pipe in, correct?
That would be for them to figure out, but yes,
Right.
it is actually, I did talk to him about that,
Mhm.
but that would definitely be for them to figure out. He would have to see what flow he uses, so I imagine he'd have to get himself an engineer or somebody with that type of hydrology to figure it out.
Okay.
Okay. So, so all those savings in today's world are dollars that are flowing in to support the rest of the city services that are necessary. So we'll talk about that a little bit, the impact of the general fund. So this is a synopsis. There are 3 slides to come that give you detail on all of this. But starting at the top, this is just your basic revenue and costs. So the baseline as it is today, water and sewer takes in about $7.9 million of revenue. We spend about $6.2 million in costs, so we add about $1.7 million to our fund balance on an annual basis. That money is going into the fund balance to pay for all of the capital costs that we're going to be talking about in a few minutes. That has built up to a substantial, and we'll talk about this in a second, a substantial cash balance of right around $12 million as of right now. If we take away sewer and we keep water, we will retain about roughly $3 million, a little less than $3 million in revenue. We'll also retain $3.6 million of the costs, so we will need additional funding of $700,000 roughly if we merge our sewer, and this is all based on today's cost and today's rates. If we merge both, we take all of our revenue away. We still have $1.3 million worth of ongoing costs. So we would have a revenue gap or a funding gap of about $1.3 million that would have to be replaced with additional revenue in the general fund.
So for clarity, for those people that are sitting at home, that 1.3 is mostly salaries, you would say?
Next slide here, I'll show you this. This is the detail of the personnel costs. Now, it's not just salaries, it is benefits, which would include the state retirement plan that is fairly expensive, medical benefits, payroll taxes, all-in costs. Today, in today's dollars, today's wages, we have about $1.3 million of personnel costs that are paid for by the water sewer fund. We believe that if we merge everything, we will be able to get rid of about $257,000 of that, and about $1 million would continue on. And this gives you the blow by blow. So the administration, which is the city administration and the aldermen, 1/3 of the all-in cost is paid for by the water sewer fund. So that's that category is paid for 1/3 general fund, 1/3 water sewer fund, and 1/3 electric fund. So we can't have, for instance, 2/3 of a city manager. So that cost is going to be ongoing. I'm going to skip Public Works for a second. The finance group, which has also responsibility for utilities billing. Currently, we're paying $242,000 worth of costs out of the water sewer fund. We have one full-time position that we can eliminate in its entirety, and that is the person that does the water and sewer bills and sends the bills. And she does a lot more than that. She checks the meters, she runs reports, and she notifies Public Works if somebody's reading looks like there may be a leak, and they fill out work orders to send people to look at the meter. So there's a lot that goes on with that, but it's all specifically water sewer. We also have 2 part-time CSRs that we're assuming that will, in this analysis, that will go away, although our Public Works Director and our tax collector are going to talk in a moment about their staffing needs, and there's some concern about the full-time CSR, the part-time CSRs being eliminated because they do staff City Hall, the window, 8:30 to 5 days a week. They answer the phones, direct the calls. They do a lot. So we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. But to answer your question, Mr. Mayor, about $1 million of the ongoing $1.3 million is personnel costs in this analysis. I would also point out that back to Public Works, and Tom will talk about this in great detail. His folks are not they're general employees. They don't do just water other than two positions. They do streets and sewer and a lot of other things together. So he'll talk about that. That assumption there is that two full-time people will go away to the county that are specific to water, and one of the generalists will also go away. He also had 2 vacancies that the board approved in the budget that he's been very responsibly not filling pending this whole situation, so that we don't bring people on board and then have to let them go. So, moving on a little bit, the non-personnel costs that go in that would be ongoing. Currently, we incur about $4.8 million in total. In a full merger, we have to keep a little bit of that, $340,000. If we keep water, we'd have to keep about 2.4 of the $4.8 million. These are estimates based on what we currently know and what we're currently experiencing. Some of these costs are a little hard to project. It's kind of hard to tell when something might break and you might have to do a repair on a piece of equipment. But these are on our best knowledge right today. So of the $1.3 million, in round numbers, $1 million of personnel costs and $300,000+ of non-personnel costs. Okay. Questions about the costs before we move on?
The question about water, if we were to retain it, would we still be paying retail rates, Steve? I think we would still be paying retail rates for water if we retained the water. That's in the form of a question. Oh, Tom. I just thought since he was county, but if you've got the answer.
Based on the current contract, yes, that's what you would pay.
Okay, so how do we fund this gap? So we just got a couple of ideas in here. We're certainly not trying to prescribe anything, just throwing out to the board some analysis for your consideration. But new revenue has to be identified to fund those continuing costs that we just talked about. We have, as Bonnie mentioned, we have an opportunity to spend some ARP money, and I'll click up to the next slide here. If you recall, the city received $1.264 million from ARP funding that is generally available for us to do anything we want with. It's cash that we have. It's in the bank today. It is in a separate fund. It is not part of the $12 million that is attributed to the water sewer fund. It's segregated out on its own. And the board had passed a resolution that assigned that money to be directed toward the expansion of the wastewater treatment facility that we will not have to do in a sewer merger situation. So as it stands today, we can't do anything else with that money because the board has directed it toward this wastewater expansion project. We could, it is allowable for us to use this money in a one-year situation to plug the $1.3 million gap that we've got in the general fund. That's the board decision. It is also possible that we could use that money for other things, streets maintenance, paving, other capital projects. It's generally money that we can pretty much do anything we want to with. So, Bonnie mentioned that. We're throwing that out there as for your consideration of options.
I certainly like that thought, that we use that money and then we won't have to worry about it next budget year, but all you're doing is pushing the problem down. And I don't like using ARPA funds for repetitive, so to me, it's nice, I wish, but I would not recommend that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that we've got to find a revenue stream that covers that 1.3, or ultimately we're going to find ourselves in a bad position down the road. Do you have a recommendation on what we use the 1.2 for?
We can either do that now or I've got it later. We could do that too, because I've got a number of, I want you to hear from Tom and Tom.
Okay, to broach the topic that nobody really wants to talk about, and that is using this as just example information for your information for consideration. If the decision was to increase the ad valorem taxes to plug this ongoing revenue gap, what would that mean? And what would that mean on an individual utility customer taxpayer basis. So we've tried to put a little bit of handles around that for us just to look at, so you have this information as you consider how we move forward. If we had to replace $700,000 worth of revenue in a sewer-only merger, we would have to raise the ad valorem tax from its current 27.5 cents rate to 32.4 cents to make that difference up. If we had, and that's based on current valuations as they exist today.
It's like 20-some-odd%, right?
It's
I'd say 25%, more or less.
Yeah, approximately. Yes, sir. It's about it's $700,000 worth of tax revenue on whatever the base is, but yes, it's about 25%.
Just 2 years ago, we raised it by 30-some-odd%, and now this proposal would raise it another 25%, just for the record.
Correct.
What is the base?
27 and a half.
No, I'm sorry, well, what's the denominator you're figuring that you've done the math? So sorry. What is the denominator on your 701 and the 13? How many taxpayer, payers, stakeholders? You understand what I'm telling you?
So I don't have
Apologize.
that particular number directly in front of me. What we did was to say, I would have to pull that specific number, get back to you. It's $3 million, 3-point-some million dollars. Do you know, Teresa, the amount, specific amount? It's in all of my calculations, but it's not right on this piece of paper, so I can pull that for you. But the math says that we would have to go from 27.5 to 32.4 cents to make up the $700,000 in a water-only merger, and we would have to go to 36.9 cents to make up the full $1.35 million. What does that mean in terms of, so first of all, I need to point out, and I think everybody understands this, that some of our utility customers today don't live in the city limits and they don't pay city ad valorem taxes. When everybody saves, but only the city residents pay the real estate tax, we are transferring some tax from some cost burden from outside of city limits to inside city limits. So just to point that out in this, that's another, bad thing about this option.
Is there a page here that says, you had a page that said if we transferred the sewer, the individual average person would save X. If we did the sewer and water, they would save Y. And now if you're going to raise the taxes to make this happen, we've been advertising that your sewer rate's going to go down between 30 and 50%.
Right. The next slide probably answers that question for you, sir. I just want to point out the slide that's still on the screen, the savings multiple, right? When you take how much your typical resident, and this obviously is going to vary person by person, but how much your typical resident would save in utility costs versus how much they would pay in additional tax in this scenario, your typical person would save $3 of utility costs for every $1 of tax increase in the keep water scenario, and they would save about $2 of utility costs for every $1 of tax increase in the keep sewer scenario.
Sorry, we're throwing out two different types of numbers here. One, we had a hard number.
Mm-hmm.
If you did this, you would save $700 and some odd $700. And now we're talking about a 3-to-1 ratio and a 2-to-1 ratio. In hard dollars, what's the total?
Let's go to this screen then. So obviously, all of these numbers depend on your current situation. How much is your house valued at, and how much are you being taxed on? So on this slide that's up here, and which was in your deck, on the left, it's a summary of what we've already seen of utility savings by meter size. So if you're a resident inside the city limits and you have a 3/4 inch water main, which is the standard, you're going to save about $775 a year in a full merger. Go to the right and look at your property, taxable property value, because there's obviously a range of property values. If you go all the way down to $800,000, you see in a full merger, your taxes would go up about $750 at an $800,000 house. That's your basic break-even point. Your $800,000 house is basically, you think about it as your break-even point. If your house is you're taxed on less than $800,000 and you're a typical resident, you're going to be in the money. If your house is valued at more than $800,000, then it would be an additional cost to you in this scenario. This is the best way I could see to present this discussion, because of there is no such thing as a standard, property value, I think. So that to me is, if just think about it in those simple terms, your break even is about $800,000 in taxable value. So again, we're not prescribing anything, but we knew this conversation would happen, so we try to put some handles on it so we have a chance to think about it.
I got to be asking, not for today, but what percentage of houses in the city are $800,000 and more?
I have no idea.
Is it really?
It's probably 20% or less inside the city limits.
Only fives do it, but, yeah, that kick.
Now, if you're, and we haven't really talked about this because not everyone has irrigation, but there are a number of folks that have irrigation. Irrigation basically doubles your savings because irrigation pumps a lot of water through. So all of these numbers we've run in the most conservative scenarios that we can, assuming you have just water and sewer. For those that have irrigation, for those that have larger water meters or use higher consumption, your numbers could be better than this. But the simplest way I could think of to say this is your $800,000 house is your break-even.
I would guess that the $800,000 houses have irrigation on them. So if we, so trying to market this in the future, if we could try to figure out, you used a number that if you had irrigation, your savings would double, and I know that's a ballpark figure. But we're trying to market this later on, what we have. If we could look at the houses that are $800,000 or more, assuming that they have irrigation, assuming an average amount of water for irrigation, whatever that might be, if we could put those figures together sometime, I would appreciate it.
I have those figures, if I can maybe back this up far enough to get back to a slide that we've already passed. Right here, you see on this slide, I know it's really hard for you that are right on top of this thing to see. Okay, I apologize. The rightmost column, each of these boxes, is irrigation. So if you're a residential customer inside city limits, you're going to save about $737 a year in irrigation on top of the $775 for water, sewer, based on the work that we've done and the analysis we've done. If you're somebody that's got a really big water system, you could save a couple $1,000s a year in irrigation on top of everything else. But that's when I say it basically doubles it. That's what I'm talking about, the $775 and the $737. And those are, there's not a huge percentage of the customers that have irrigation, but they're a substantial number, and those folks will receive additional savings on top of just the straight water sewer service.
So Southport lowered the base rate to the 1,000 gallons a couple of years ago for our water. How does that play into this? Does the county have a base rate as well? Is it different than what we're currently charging for? And then how does that affect the pricing and what we're seeing for savings for City of Southport residents?
So all of that is factored into these slide, at the very end of this presentation, in the appendix, I have the current rates for both the county and the city. So the county rate, the base number is much less for the county than it is for the city. Currently, Southport has a base of $78.54 for residential sewer. The county has a base rate of $39. So, so that we're almost double the county's base.
And that's for that 1,000 gallons?
Per thousand, yeah, yes, per thousand, that's correct. And on water, the city currently, and I'm talking about residential city residents at this point, has a base on water of $26.45, and the county has a base on water of $16. So all 1,000 gallons, yes, they are.
Mr. Stone, you look perplexed. Do you have a comment?
I was just going to say a factor you might want to consider as looking at this, particularly because of the break-even point as far as the property tax exchange, is that I would think, by and large, folks that own a house valued at $800,000 or more are going to be itemizers on their federal returns, and taxes are deductible and utility payments are not for individuals.
Well played. Thank you.
When they
The other thing, Rebecca, to answer, I think part of what you were trying to see is how many gallons do they get with that base rate, Larry? And when I'm looking at yours, it looks like for sewer, for single-family residents, they get up to 3,000 gallons as part of their base rate. Is that right, Steve?
That is correct.
So I think that you were trying to compare it to ours, which is 1,000.
Yes. In of itself could be significant savings for our people.
An unseen savings because it's $6 and change per thousand over that 1,000. So that would be over 12, probably 13 and change additionally.
But just to reiterate, all of that's baked into these savings numbers because we are dealing with actual monthly usage consumption on a meter-by-meter basis, so that all was factored in.
Rich, just to talk about the assessed value again, I mean, just to give you an idea, that if you look at a property on Bay Street that recently sold for $3 million, it has a tax assessment of only $1.5 million. So the 800 threshold, not a single one of us has a home worth more than 800,000 based on tax assessed value. So I don't think that I think the percentage is probably accurate at that 20% or less, would be over 800,000.
So you're talking about what you could sell it for as opposed to what the tax rate is?
the county assessed tax rate.
Right, yeah.
Which generally is low most of the time.
The county won't come in and reassess us based on the fact that our water and sewer are now going to the county, correct, Mr. Stone?
Lance?
Is there more discussion on this before I skip to the next slide?
The only thing I would say is that, you know, I like that if we do the full merger and we do have to raise the tax rate, that at least we're protecting those that are most vulnerable. So I do think that that's a positive thing that we can at least feel good about if we have to do that.
And I would hope that many of our citizens would tune back into this meeting and really hear us going through all of this to make sure that we're really putting our best foot forward for them, trying to make sure that we're not going to harm anyone in this process.
Okay, moving on to the fund balance discussion, if we can. So we'll talk about the specifics of what a fund balance is. Currently, the fund balance is it's a living number. It changes as transactions occur. As of the last time I pulled this, which was January the 4th, we had a $27 million fund balance, of which 12 million or so was cash. Okay? And we have a lot of decisions, and this is the attorney alluded to this in his comments. There's a lot of detail to be teased out here as to what assets we have, where they are, who paid for them, what they're needed, how they're needed to be used on an ongoing basis. So we shouldn't just brush past this, because there's a lot to be done here, and this would take quite a bit of time in an actual merger execution. But the fund balance, so the fund balance, for those folks that are, from private business, it's essentially your equity, right? It's your assets minus your liabilities that are on your balance sheet. Our assets in the water sewer balance are, and I will go to the next slide while I'm discussing this, so you can see the numbers. Our assets, we have about $29.7 million of assets. You can see the water and sewer system is the big number on there. That's the infrastructure, the lift stations, the pipes, etc. We have some land. Most of that is the Sunny Point land. Some of the land also, I think, has to do with where the lift stations reside, but and other things. But the Sunny Point is the big number there. Yes, sir.
That number, is that today's appraised value, or is that what we paid?
That's what's on the books for what we
Okay.
paid, yes. And I will just point out that depreciation, of course, land doesn't depreciate, but the depreciation number, we've not yet been able to finish the analysis on how much of that is from the water sewer system, how much just equipment. That's just one number up there at this point. We have a few liabilities, most of which is liabilities for post-retirement and pension benefits for employees, right? So those liabilities are not going to transfer to the county if the employees stay with us. So we would need to reserve enough cash to fund those liabilities in any kind of a merger conversation. So it's about $1.6 million right now, which leaves us a net $27 million.
I'm sorry, Lance, when you say that, that's a recurring, if we were to keep the employees, that cost goes on until they retire.
It does. It continues to build.
Are you talking about for 1 year? You would
I'm
keep
talking
them?
about, this is the accumulated balance as of, I guess, probably the end of last fiscal year when it was revalued most recently. So if a person, the employee, this is their sort of, as they stand today, what their projected, what the city's liability is for the, at retirement as of today. It's an actuarial calculation that is going through. So all of these assets are important. Cash is, of course, the most important one of these that we need to talk about. We discussed earlier how our fund balance builds today in a typical year by about $1.7 million, and that's money that's being put aside for capital improvements that we're going to talk about just in a second. But we need to consider what we're going to do with some of this cash, if anything, in the short term. And just like Shalot went through the conversation about reducing rates today, we have that same opportunity. We could reduce, we could at least attempt to reduce our customers' rates today to the county's rates or something near the county's rates. And that would use up some of this cash and put it back in the customers' pockets right away, rather than making them wait 6-8 months for a merger. We have, like I said, we need the board will need to act to put some of this money aside, and it needs to be negotiated through the merger process, that we need to, for the employees that are ongoing, we need to identify their pension and OPEB liability. We need to reserve that amount of cash for that. And there's a lot of other assets that are kind of buried in here that that the board will need to decide what we do with. The water tower. Going to convey the water tower or not? You know, the Sunny Point land is in there. What do we do with that?
Because there's 3 points I want to make sure the board's aware of here. One is Tom Z just opened up 2 bids, 2 good bids, 3. Because we got to bring a company in to value our assets. So him and I have not had a chance to talk because he just opened them up. So we'll be back to you with that. 2, Steve Stone and I talked about this yesterday, is Sunny Point land. And right now, but you know, we just started talking about this, he does not think the county has a use for it, but if they do, it would technically be their land. So I have to make sure I'm keeping him abreast of what decisions you make on that property, much as I do with Matsu, so that, you know, he understands eventually that could all become part of the county. And the third topic, Lance and I just talked about this yesterday. A lot of these numbers, depreciation, as Lance has mentioned, a few other things, we are not 100% sure that those are correct. And Lance and I talked, and we would like to recommend to you, but I have not had time to even cost this out, that we bring somebody from the outside to take a hard look at those numbers in the way that they were put together. So if it's under 30, I can do that. If it's over 30, I need to come back to you, but I don't know the price because we just started talking about this. But both of us do have a concern that we feel like an auditor or somebody would come in and take a real hard look at the numbers through the years and make sure these numbers are accurate.
Particularly the assets and the valuation of the assets, and you know, did the water and sewer fund pay for an asset that's not in the water and sewer balance sheet, or did the general fund pay for something that is in the balance sheet? So that kind of sort of detective work, you know, still needs to be done.
And right now, he cannot tell, so I think we need somebody from the outside.
Larry, I'm trying to understand the difference in the Lance. I'm sorry, God. Sorry, Lance. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Oh God, it's early still. Sorry, I apologize. Somebody help me. Anyway, we have different numbers for depreciation. There was like 15 million and change for sewer in the report, and 16 million and change for water, and it was listed as depreciation in this, you know, in those. Anyway, so I'm assuming that's the discount on that in that document, because you've got, the reason I'm asking is you've got it as 20 million. The water sewer system, I'm assuming that's the value of the water sewer system?
That's the cost, the original cost value as it was paid for at the time it was purchased, and put and recorded to this particular fund.
Oh.
Do you know the difference? Can you explain the difference that the alderman is referring to? That there were 2 different numbers for depreciation?
So the difference of the bought purchase value versus the depreciation over time of the asset?
No, that's not the question. Apparently that there's the numbers that are here are what our financial system today says for this particular fund are the assets and depreciation. I think the alderman is looking at a different report that has a different depreciation number on it, Brandon.
I just wondered what the difference was. This is from the sewer report and then from the water report.
You're talking about from the
consultant.
From the merger feasibility, Karen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Merger feasibility.
We will have to try to reconcile that.
So those numbers aren't necessarily accurate, that's what you're getting at?
That's what I'm getting
So, and do we think that the 20 million, and then you have, as the value of it, and then you're depreciating at 9 million?
Yes.
That you're depreciating
Well,
that
it's-
20
it's-
million, 9
it's
million?
20 million for that, and then it's maybe equipment and other type things that might have a little bit of depreciation, but the vast majority of it is going to be from that 20 million. That's
Okay.
correct. We have, as Monty pointed out, one of the things we're doing here is part of this is we're combing through all of our assets and our records and making sure they're right. A lot of this stuff is honestly, the detail is just spreadsheets that have been around for a while, and I have been able to reconcile those spreadsheets really close to what's up there. Maybe just a few $1,000s off here and there. So I think we've got a pretty good handle on what it is. What is in that consultant's report? That was before I was here. I don't really know where that data came from.
So Lance, you talked about a water tower. You're not talking about the blue water tower that's over here?
Yep.
That's not connected to anything. It's got water in it just for stability.
It's still on the books in the water and sewer system as an asset, and so when we start talking about, how the county...
Other than iconic, I'm not sure what other asset it is, though it helps people on boats coming in figure out which way they're supposed to turn coming into the harbor. It doesn't do any function except it's on everything that we have.
But there is a cost to keep that water tower. So is the cost going to be us taking that on? You know what I'm saying? Because and those are not cheap to keep them standing, that's for sure.
Yeah, we can talk offline about that. The $12 million.
Sir.
Help me out here. We put like $3.2, $3.3 million, I thought, in a line item to repair the lift stations. Is that part of the 12?
That's a different presentation. We have all that in your next presentation.
I'm trying to figure out. You're saying that we have of $12 million in cash. Well, that's still in cash because we haven't spent it. So I'm just trying to figure out where it goes into the...
If that's allocated or not.
It's supposed to be allocated. I mean, it's encumbered to do something.
Right.
But it hasn't been done, and it may not be done by the time this all happens.
So I'll skip ahead to see if I can. So currently we have funding, not counting the cash, identified for several projects that are ongoing. The lift station upgrades, if that's what you're referring to, is $2.8 million worth of funding, and that's a state grant that has nothing to do with the cash in the bank for us.
So we're not counting that towards the
We're not
12
counting
million.
That's new.
I'm still trying to figure out, that's 3 lift stations. It was almost $3 million. And the value of a lift station, according to the consultant, is $500,000 a lift station. I'm not sure how we refurbish one for $1 million, but we could buy a new one for $500,000. But we'll have to talk about that later, why that number is in there.
Can you go forward and backwards one so that I can try to figure out where you are? If you don't mind.
Sir,
Just what's-
there was a second presentation, there was a second presentation that began here.
Okay, perfect.
So this part of the discussion, I guess, is about the large cost that, not the annual cost, not the annual expenses, but the ongoing efforts that could be avoided, or should be and will be avoided in a merger situation. This is heavily sewer, of course. But just to revisit where we are today, just make sure we all are level set on it. We have an agreement with the county today that is still in force. It hasn't been negated. That requires us to pay for wastewater treatment capacity expansion and to become a member of the group that have ongoing costs. So this has been in effect since 2020, and when the deal was signed, county had estimated that it was going to cost, let's just go back and revisit. We wanted to buy $700,000 worth of additional, 750,000 gallons of additional wastewater capacity, which the county didn't have. They needed to expand. The board requested that, and the county agreed to it, and an agreement was signed in 2020. That agreement required us to convey some assets to the county immediately, which we did, including the pump station at Sandy Lane, and a force main, and a wastewater meter. That's all been done. That belongs to the county now.
Lance, when you say 750,000 gallons additional, I've heard those numbers around. I'm a little confused on that, because I think what we did was, and hopefully somebody can explain this to me, we were purchasing 750,000 gallons so that we could join the consortium, for lack of a better term. It wasn't, we had 500,000, let's just for figures, 500,000 here, and adding 750, we're paying up 750,000 in total. And I keep hearing people use that phrase, an additional 750,000, which is, I don't know that is as accurate.
I think Tom could probably address that more than I could.
I think it ends up being and Steve, by all means, correct me if I'm wrong. Southport is not purchasing an additional 750,000 gallons, okay? What it is, the additional 750,000 gallons is what the county is adding to their current capacity that was part of this Southport deal.
So it is accurate to say additional as opposed to over the top. I mean, I don't know how much we before we went to do this, I thought our usage was about 700,000 gallons, somewhere in that category. And so are we now at 1.45?
No.
No.
It was when the Southport plant closed down, that 750,000 gallons had to go to the county. So the county had to put an additional 750,000 gallons onto their plant to handle the 750,000 gallons that the Southport plant
Because
was
before
treating.
that, we were paying a higher rate because we weren't part of the consortium. And now, theoretically, we
still are. Once the plant is complete, then we would become members of the consortium. Until that time, we're paying I believe it's the industrial rate or the commercial rate.
Okay. Thank you.
So, at the time the agreement was signed, the estimate was that this was going to cost about between 25 and $26 million, and that the city was going to pay for that. The bids came in last year, as I understand it, at $46 million, not $26 million. We have funding, and it was on this other chart here. We have funding available to us of a little less than $30 million from a North Carolina DEQ loan that we would have to take out and pay back over a period of years to put toward that construction as our current agreement stands. The water sewer, the sewer feasibility study estimated only a 1.5% interest rate on that over 20 years. I can't tell you whether that's going to be right or wrong, but their estimate was that it would cost the city $1.7 million a year in debt service for 20 years to take on that $30 million loan. So that's savings to the taxpayer that it's got to be figured into this calculation that they're not going to have to come up with over time as part of this merger, because the generosity of the legislature and the amount of the money they gave to the county is going to make that an unnecessary.
Maybe I've got this confused as well. The $30 million, more or less, from the grant.
It's not a grant, it's a loan.
A loan, I'm sorry. When we were having the discussion, I don't know, Mr. Stone, some time ago, you had talked about the county absorbing or taking over our loan debt. So my question is when we leave here, we're all on the same page, including the counties. So we got, the county got $35 million from the state to do something. Was the county also in their thought process, including an additional $30 million from this loan to do this process or not?
No,
You were not?
no.
Okay, thank you.
So in a merger situation, this loan becomes unnecessary, and this debt service to our taxpayers becomes unnecessary.
I didn't know if the county was going to make us take the loan out and then take the loan over. I just wanted to figure that out. Okay, thank you.
So we've been debt servicing for water and this
No, we have
over the
not-
last year or two.
We have not executed this loan yet. This is money that's available to us.
We
But we
increased,
have put money aside, I think this is where you're going, to pay back this debt, which is why the rates are so high. You've done it over a number of years.
To build up the fund in order to be able to pay the debt.
okay, by putting this money in the fund, can we not get it back out since we're not going to use that money?
It could be spent, money can be spent in the fund, but if that's what you mean, sure, that's part of why the money is so high, the cash is so high, and this fund was in
Right.
anticipation of paying that
That's
loan.
one of the questions I need you guys to answer is, we have different options we'll present at the very end of how you could spend down that extra, debt money, for example, and so you have to make that decision. Just hand it all over to them.
Yeah, I guess one of the questions I have is the county anticipating that?
Yes, exactly. I'd say exactly, I agree.
Yeah, because if the county, they've got 35 plus 12, that gets them up to 47. That's about the number that it's going to cost to do this expansion for them, right? So are they anticipating getting that money, or if we go and try to spend it down or do something else
Well,
with it, are they going to get
As
pissed
Shalot
off?
did,
Upset.
you negotiate that. I mean, that's how Shalot did. They negotiated bringing the rates down in order to,
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just don't want to do anything to upset the county anymore.
no. We work very well together, and we would sit down and we would figure all this out. But again, I can't start talking to Steve and Aaron until I know what direction you are all thinking of. But certainly that was all negotiable, and sat down with them and figured out, okay, are you willing to allow us, or do you need all the money, in their case for the water assets, or would you mind if we spent down until the merger? So, and they agreed to that.
Question, I guess we keep talking about the water side of this. They've expressed that they want that too. So,
Yes, and actually, the money that our state representatives got to us is technically for sewer water merger. But I want to make sure, because you never voted, that I get a vote today that, yes, you want to continue with that. But yes, it's their intent that it's both systems. Now, Shalot decided not to. They backed out their sewer system because of that whole annexation issue, which I'm sure everybody realizes. You give up sewer, you're giving up the rights to make decisions on annexation areas.
That was going to be my question. Are we shooting ourselves in the foot for doing this when people then don't want to annex into Southport any longer? And we're looking at potential, not that we have it at this time, but potentially losing revenue in the future because of it.
And how do you even figure that out? How do you figure out the total value of land that has not been annexed into it when you put a house on it, and what that tax rate would be, and how much money you would be taking in compared to giving it up? And I don't know how we do that math. See what I'm saying?
After that. Is there an app for that?
Artificial intelligence to
Just a couple quick clarification points about the cash balance. One is, we are going to have to reserve a little bit of that for the OPEB situation, so it'll be a little less than $12 million. It'll probably be between 10 and 11 as it stands today. The other thing I want to just make sure everybody's kind of context. $12.4 million is 1 out of every $3 the city has in cash.
Say that again.
$12.4 million is 1 out of every $3 the city has in cash. It's 34% of the city's cash balance as of last week. So just in context, so you understand, we're talking about 1/3 of the city's cash potentially going to the county in this deal.
Can only use that cash for sewer issues, correct? We can't, if the hurricane came in and knocked the city down, unless it was impacting the sewer system, are we not obligated only to use it for sewer projects?
Well, my understanding is that LGC and like the UNC government will their advice is that elected officials and governing boards have the authority to transfer money out of enterprise funds into general funds. I don't believe that that's advisable, but I do think it is.
I will clarify that because I have never, by accounting standards or anything, your enterprise funds are 100% only to be used for whatever that enterprise fund, but I will.
We did check with the School of Government on it, and I mean, I'm not saying it's advisable, but it is.
What I will say
What if
is.
we negotiate?
I'm sorry. What I will say is, in the past, we had to borrow, the general fund had to borrow from it, but had to pay it back. That's what I know.
Could in our negotiation, the county agree to let us keep that money? And we put it into the general fund? I don't know that they do that, but
Everything's negotiable, but it is water and sewer, and the people who paid for water and sewer funds, that should be the one, that's where it should go back to, is for that.
so I know you showed this, and I just can't find it again, but how much money do we bring in a year in water and sewer?
We bring in the net contribution to the general fund is about $1.6 million a year after expenses are paid.
Gross.
I can.
I just missed
It's quite a ways back, but I can get back to it.
No, it's fine. I can search it. We'd be real heroes if we gave away water and sewer for a few months.
There's the summary of the revenue as it exists today in the water and sewer funds. You see, we take in about $2.7 million worth of sales from water. We take in about $4 million worth of sales from sewer. And then we have the system development fees, the tap fees, et cetera. So about little less than $7.9 million comes in revenue in today's world.
One thing we could do perhaps is, because we're not going to do that $30 million loan, maybe we could back that cost out of the rate. What we've been accruing for that.
I think we don't just stop there. I think we do whatever we can.
Yeah, I was
I
going
mean,
to say,
it-
there's got to be, I think there's simpler ways that you can utilize that, I don't want to get too complicated, when if you just lower the rates, that would be a great way to help everybody out now.
But that's on
No,
8 months or something.
well, until the merger's done, but then by the merger's done, they take over, it's their rates.
It's their rates, which are lower than ours anyway.
I just don't know if there's a way, if we threw more money into the 47 different sewer projects that we have that are on the books, that could we expedite them, in the next year?
Between materials, our consultants are up to their ears with their own projects. I would say absolutely not. And Tom's saying no way.
No, with permitting, completing the plans, getting material in this time period, it's throwing more money at it will not get it done any faster.
But we We have other ideas later of how to throw away the money.
Correct.
So here's my concern, and I voiced this to a couple of you before, is that while we have line items for, let's say, I'm going to use just lift stations as an example. So we turn the whole thing over to county, and the county has to look at the whole county. They're not looking just merely at Southport. And they may have to decide to use that $12 million for other things that are more urgent than the projects that we have on the books. And so we lose control of that unless we can negotiate specifically that the monies that we have encumbered for the lift stations and anything else we've encumbered money for will be part of the negotiations, so we know that they'll get done, as opposed to nothing nefarious here. I'm not talking about anything nefarious. It's just they have a bigger audience than just us.
So one thing that we should probably point out, the slide that's up there now.
Go on, Lance, just real quick. I'm sorry, we should have had handouts because this was an additional. I just emailed to all of you the additional presentation Lance is doing now, so we should have had handouts for him. I forgot about that.
There's a number of projects that are identified with funding identified today. Those projects, setting aside that $30 million for the expansion of the wastewater facility that we're going to avoid, those projects require today $14 million worth of additional debt that we would not have to undertake in the event that this whole thing went the county went on with this.
Can you give me like an example of what you're talking about here?
Absolutely. So replacing the clay terracotta sewer lines in the city, okay? We have a funding agreement with the USDA Rural Utilities Service for $10.5 million to fund that project. However, only $4.5 million of that is a grant. The other $6 million requires the city, this is in the written agreement that was signed, requires the city to issue $6 million worth of municipal bonds that the USDA will purchase. And then we would have to pay those bonds back over time.
Do we have an interest rate on that, or we're just doing the 7, 8, 9% now?
It's all in the agreement. I'd have to pull out the specifics on it.
Yeah, it's somewhere
We have another project that's close to $10 million for the Find It and Fix It project that we have state, we have a combination of state loans and state grants, but the grant portion of it is only like $1.3 million. And the loan is for $8.5 million for the state revolving fund.
Have we executed that
We have
loan?
not executed any of these yet. These are agreements that we have in place. We've not yet borrowed the funds. We're not paying any debt on it. So this is all avoidable. So when we start talking about the $12 million, the $12 million could theoretically avoid a lot of this debt, or, you know, the county could use these funds when they have to go in. And I will tell you that the USDA called us specifically, had a conversation with us when they saw in the media about this merger, and they said, this is money is approved for the city only. It is, the county is not eligible for this money. So if the county takes this project on, we're out.
One of the things Steve and I started talking about a few months ago is once his staff and our staff meet together about all these capital projects, depending on how far along in us finishing the project, it would make more sense for us to finish it. But we've still got to decide which ones will finish and which ones the county will take over. But one thing we do know is we're making sure our consultants know it has to be up to county specs, whatever we're doing. So we're still working on which ones will finish and which ones they'll take over. And then our grant person, Emily, has already been in touch on the state grants with the state agencies, and they are willing to work with the county if they take over those, about taking over those loans or whatever, so.
I'm just having a hard time grasping the sequence of events here, is that you're asking us to discuss potential uses of the money, and we do not know what the bottom line for the county is first. And so if we decided to do 5 things, and then, and the county comes back the next day and says, no, why do we have this discussion until we figure out, in other words, just give you the permission to go and figure this out?
I would rather have some direction from you guys on what you're even considering, because if I could go out
Well-
and come up with some amazingly stupid idea, and you're going to say, no, why would you ever bring that up to them? So
I think that, one of the things that I agree with the mayor is, we're making a decision to possibly spend down our fund balance, and we may get to the end of that, and they say, no, we expected this, this, and this. So I certainly think we need to start having a conversation with the county about those kinds of things much sooner than later. I have no problem going ahead and reducing rates. I think that we should do that. I personally think we should do that immediately. It's evident that we're not going to have the debt service, so we raised rates for the debt service. I believe that was the intention there. So let's lower the rates to match the county rates, and then get into conversation with the county about all the other details.
And then with that, do we also change our base water from the 1,000 to the 3,000 that the county does at the same time?
I think we mimic the county's rates across the board. Just do exactly what our people are going to get when we complete the merger.
That would be more than the debt service money. I just want to be clear. The rates were raised for other things. They were already higher than the county, substantially higher than the county, before we then planned for the debt service.
My idea behind that is that it allows us to spend down some of that cash we have. It's not going to be significant, but it'll help.
What you're saying is that when we merge, it just becomes seamless. They're paying now, the rate stays the same.
If I heard the attorney correctly, didn't he say that when that happened in Charlotte, they had to go through LGC, and it took 4 months to get through LGC?
I would reach out to them and see how long it could take.
That fund balance is very strong. So I don't know what, he said a couple million in Charlotte. I believe they had cash in there. So a couple million, it doesn't sound like 12 million.
They also retain sewer. And I would, without knowing the details, I would bet that most of their cash was attributable to sewer. That's as far as I had. This is all I had.
Yeah, we'll take a 10-minute break, but I do want to say one thing. It's very disheartening, the first part of your conversation, and this is nothing against you, Lance, that not sure that we have the right numbers and we need to bring a third party in to look over our books. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Well, there are just some complexities because financial systems have been changed, and when that happens, sometimes the beginning balance just says beginning balance, and we're going back 8 years, 10 years, 12 years to try to figure out what that meant when there's nobody with the city that was here at that time. That's the difficulty. I'm not trying to say specifically that there are a whole lot of problems with the numbers, or there are a lot of inaccuracies, or they're wrong. It's just that we can't tease out some of the details that we really need in this merger because the data is old and the people are gone. So.
That makes me feel a lot better. Thank you. All right, we'll take a 10-minute recess.
All right, we got Teresa, you're up next to talk about staffing and some decisions more you have to make on this.
I'm Teresa Jones. I'm with the utility department in City Hall. And I guess I need to go forward with this. We have basically 3 full-time employees in the utility billing and department and 2 part-time CSRs. And I was just going to tell you a little bit about what each position entails, and then we'll go about what we can do depending on the merger decision. The tax collector is also the standing supervisor of the department, and so in that position, you're kind of overseeing the whole department, dealing with escalated issues, staff the window if someone's out or at lunch, but also do a lot of other duties, including like reconciling the bank statements and issuing beer and wine licenses. We take care of all the returned items for checks and such, and keep up with debt set-off and S-cheating. There's doing the tax reports with the county. So there's a lot of duties within that position, in addition to covering the front and helping with the utility billing as needed. And then the utility billing specialist person is the one that actually does the majority of the work for the sewer and the water billing. So they're going to be taking care of, like I think Lance mentioned earlier, there are a lot of meters that we have to get reads for. There are issues with leak alerts. There's new meters are installed at least every week because there's new construction or there's meters that are swapped out. And all that takes work on adding it to a utility account or taking one off of a utility account, reestablishing the reads, looking at the reads, looking at, if you go to billing and you have an account that's billing $4,000 and it should only be $70. Go look at that meter, send the request over to Public Works and get Public Works to do their portion of that, to go check out that meter. They do a lot of the work orders that go back and forth between City Hall and Public Works for checking things like that. She also takes care of the drafts for all of the payments that are made and pledges that come in. So there's a lot of things that position does do right now. And then we also...
I'm sorry, can I just interrupt you for a question? I'm not sure what you mean by pledges.
Pledges are, they come from Brunswick Family Assistance, they come from social services, and they have to be, if a check comes in, it's just applied to the account. Sometimes it's got to be applied manually. We have the Neighbors for Neighbors program. We get pledges because Brunswick Family Assistance are the one that they kind of oversee that whole project.
And the third party that we have hired to actually, that we the customer see, we get the bill in the mail, that all they do is take the electronic data that you've sent to them, process that, and stick it in an envelope and mail it to us? That's what they do?
Yeah, so all the billing, all the information that goes into that bill is taken care of at our office. And then we just send an electronic file to them, it populates, and they mail them out with the envelopes.
I asked you that question just because there's some confusion by some people in the city about exactly what does that third party do compared to what did we do before we had the third party.
Yeah, that's it. They actually, and I've been with the city over 7 years, and we've had a third party do it the whole time. And they just take, like I said, it's an electronic file. It gets to them. All they're doing is they have the folding machine. They have the, like if we produce a bill in our office, once it's produced, we can produce a copy of it. And our copy is not exact to what's produced by the third party, who's Arista. It looks a little bit different. So somebody might come in with the bill, and we're looking at it, and we're comparing it. Not a whole lot of difference, but there's a little bit of,
Okay.
where things are laid out.
Thank you.
It also allows for the scan at the bottom of the bill that we actually have it's like being at Walmart. We can scan that in, and it populates onto our billing system to make the payments.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
You're welcome. And now our customer service representative takes care of everything at the front desk at City Hall. They have the phone calls that are coming through, the customers that come in and pay the bills or ask questions, pretty much the liaison between all the other departments. We get the majority of the phone calls. We do have a phone tree, and it comes in and it says, if you want this department, click 1. If you want this one, click 3. Most, like I do when I call somewhere, it's 0, give me a person, because most people want to talk to somebody. So we do. We talk to a lot of different people about a lot of different departments. We try to answer the questions if we can. If we can't, we transfer it out to another department. But we are that kind of the first line when those phone calls come through to City Hall. So they do payments, and that's part of what we do. A lot of our payments are done now through Lockbox, and that's so that they come in as an electronic file to us, and it populates to the utility accounts too. And that took out a lot of the, we would get a stack of 300 bills in a day to be processed, and a person having to do it. Now a lot of that's done through the Lockbox through the bank. But the customer service rep is also opening all new accounts. So if somebody comes in to open up, and it's amazing the number of accounts that we open every week, because you have new renters moving in and out, you have property that's sold and there's a new owner and they're coming in to open a new account, the seller's coming in to close out their account, updating account addresses, updating phone numbers. We also do the applications to Brunswick Electric. So if you come in to open an account, we do the water, sewer, and yard debris and such, and establish that account here, and we bill. But we also have to send an application to Brunswick Electric to initiate the electric account. So that is not, the customer doesn't have to make that extra stop to Brunswick Electric. They come to us. We take care of all of it for them. So all that transfer is done by our customer service reps. And I guess I was going to mention there, we do have 2 part-time customer service reps, and they're 2 retirees, basically. Both of them have worked previously with the city through the police department, and they help answer the phones. They know a lot about the city. They know about the departments. They know about the other employees. So it's a great asset for us to have them, because all those phone calls that come through, they can help with that portion of it, and they also can take basic payments. So, yes.
Particularly in the future, this is a minor question, but a customer would have to go to the county to apply for water and sewer?
Yes, in the future, if
If
we
we
do
do
if we do a full merger, they're going to have to go to the county to do the water and sewer account, and then they would have to come to us still, though, for the electric, because we do have to initiate that account with Brunswick Electric. We are. I've put a call in to them to find out whether that's something. I mean, it's in our original contract with Brunswick Electric, as they expect an application from us, and I think to make sure that those accounts that are in the city are assigned to the city of Southport accounts, so that we get credit for those and that they don't go to Brunswick Electric directly. It might be something that we need to continue in the future. So they may have to go to the county and establish that, and it would just mean coming to us instead of Brunswick Electric, and we'd be sending those applications to them to get them established.
Right now, if you open an account, it's very easy to go downtown and just do your thing right there. If we go to the county, where are they going to have to go?
They're going to have to go to the complex, or I think they've just opened the new, where Truist was in Bolivia, on Old 17, just maybe a half a mile from the complex, a mile from the complex. So it's going to be it's going to be in Bolivia that they'll have to go to for the water and sewer.
Best case scenario, and I know this is impossible, is there any way we could get them to open a little satellite here? So our people, I don't think that's going to happen, but it would be nice to do.
We've talked about
We
that.
came up with a better idea. We thought that we would still collect them, and then, we could leave it in the mailbox, and Steve, on his way from home to work, could pick them up.
I guess there's a lot of things that we could, in this negotiation, there's an option, I guess, that if, we do prepare an application that goes directly to Brunswick Electric. I'm wondering, I guess it's a possibility, working with the county, is it something that if it becomes an issue with the board for the citizens having to go to Bolivia, can we do an application that can go straight from our office straight to Bolivia to get that established? I don't know those answers. I just know that it is going to mean that they could potentially have to go there. If they had to go straight, sending them straight to Brunswick Electric really doesn't save them any steps. They could still come to us and we can send them there. It's not really, we still have to pull credit, so it's a soft hit to your credit, doesn't hit any credit scores or whatnot. And it just gives us a risk rating, and that determines whether we need a deposit or not. And then we send basic information to Brunswick Electric. We don't transmit social security numbers or anything to them, so it would just be a matter.
Same thing with water and sewer?
We do.
Okay.
But we would have to continue to do that with the electric. So I guess my point is even if the water and sewer goes away, we still have to have people there to establish all those accounts. And
Do you know if the county does that soft hit to the county?
I'm sure that they do something to determine whether they have a deposit, and I don't think they require a deposit on every customer. Now, we now charge a deposit for all commercial customers, but not residential.
Run for the city of Southport right now, we are hitting at one time, soft hit one time for both water, sewer, and electric.
That's great.
In the future, they'd be hit one time for electric and then hit a second time for water and sewer.
Yes, but it's like I said, it's not hitting the credit. You won't
Right,
see it as
yeah.
an inquiry on your credit report. It's not hitting there. It's just a really soft, doesn't give us any information about your credit. It gives a risk rating, which is, it's going to say, you know, you got a 4% risk rating, so you don't need a deposit. It's over 10% you do. Over 20%, it's twice as much. You know, it's just going to give you a rating as a recommendation for deposits. Okay. So, like I said, the CSRs, they kind of do the same thing. The part-times do the same thing as the full-time one, but they're like an additional body that can help cover the window during lunches, during peak times, during vacations and sickness, things like that. So, and they do basic payments. So it's a lot of help. So, okay, if we do a full merger, then we're not going to have to retain a billing person. But just to clarify that, when we talked about this merger happening, we knew that the billing position may be eliminated, or they would have to go to the county, or have the opportunity to go to the county to work. So when we had an opening available within the city because of a resignation, our billing clerk actually applied for the position and was awarded that position. So we actually have a vacant position right now. So our tax collector, supervisor, and our CSR are having to absorb those duties right now. That's a lot right now. We're having to do all the billing, all the leak alerts, changing out meters, everything in addition. So that's a 40-hour-a-week job in addition to our 40-hour-a-week job. So right now we're taking on a lot more, knowing that if this merger happens, the billing's going to go away, and we won't have to replace that position. So we have two things there. If the merger is going to take 6 months or longer, we probably need to get a temp person in there that can help out because other duties are going to be falling behind. There's things that I do and our CSR do that might not be getting done as quickly or when they need to be because we're just spread too thin. So there is that to keep in mind. But assuming the merger happens, that's a position and a chunk of money that doesn't have to be put back out there because this person has moved. So we would do away with that position. But if we only get rid of sewer and we decide to retain the water, then we are going to have to hire someone to do that billing position again because we'll have to still do all the same meters and send meter reads to the county every month so they know how much to bill for the sewer. That's what we currently get from our river mist customers. We bill only sewer out there, so the county sends us those reads. If it changes and goes the opposite, we would have to send those water reads so the county would know how much to bill for the sewer.
So when we're sending this to the county every month, the actual rates from the meters, and we know what the total number of gallons actually is going to the county, which is more than that number, have we got a handle on, has our I&I going up or down since House Street?
No, we haven't done that now. Right now, we've got the usage on the water. We've got the usage through the sewer. We do it all. The only one that's different is river mist because the county provides their water for them. When that development came into play, the county did their water. So we don't know, without having their water usage, how much sewer to charge them. So the county sends us 300 and some accounts every month that says, here's their water usage, and we do the billing on the sewer based on that water usage.
Yeah, but when you're looking at the actual number of what the citizens are using, but then there's a number that we're actually paying for, which is more than that because of the rainwater that gets into the system.
Tom's going to address that.
Right.
Mayor, I would say that based on recent conversations and discussion, with all these projects we have going on, W.K. Dixon discovered that since 2019, 2020-ish area, when the House Street project was done, our daily average has gone down 30 to 40,000 gallons a day. And that happened after House Street was done. So I would say a significant amount of I&I has been decreased since House Street project, which is the sole purpose of the USDA project to get rid of the rest of clay pipes that's contributing to the I&I, because most of the I&I that's been discovered has
I
come from.
remember the price, I remember the price tag was in those, whatever, 2018, 2019, was like $318,000. I don't remember the number of gallons, so if we reduced it by 30,000 gallons, what is it that we got now?
I'll get that to you.
Okay, that's okay, thanks.
Okay. Well, that was just the point that if we retain water and we have to continue to bill every month for 3,000 plus customers and provide information to the county, that's actually going to put an extra step on the billing person, not take away from that. So we would definitely have to retain that employee or actually hire an employee for that position. So those are I guess there was also some consideration of not needing the part-time CSRs, but there's a lot of duties that we're going to have to continue to do. We're going to have issues with covering lunches. If City Hall is going to stay open from 8:30 to 5 as we currently do, and don't close for lunch, you've got to have somebody there to help cover lunch hours. Somebody takes vacation. You've got to have there's a lot of I guess things that we do up front that it's kind of hard to list them off. But it's the CSR is pretty busy all day long. So, I mean, you got to balance the cash drawer every day, make deposits, submit checks. There's a lot of things like that have to be done. And we take a lot of payments other than just water and sewer payments. We get
So can you
every
just go
payment.
into detail those payments that you're taking now? Because I don't think everybody understands how many we
There-
take.
Yes, like the police department, they do the golf cart stickers. Every customer that pays for a golf cart sticker comes to us. We pay it, we produce it, we give a receipt, we have to get the forms ready to go back to the police department. The community building, all the rentals for that, they come to us, they make their payments, we post them, we have to get the receipts ready to go back to Elena or whoever in the community building so they know. Fire inspection fees, we process all of those. After school, before school programs for Parks and Rec, those are all processed at our office. Inspections and permitting. So all these fees that they collect for their permits, they come through us if it's paid through cash or check. Even if it's paid through credit card, we process that. We have to import that into our system. Facility rentals, we have to process for JC building, all the parks if they're rented out, things, well, not the parks, but anything that's rented out that way. All the money comes through the City Hall that we have to process. We have to balance the drawer every day and make deposits for that. We do beer and wine licenses every year. That's just a bunch. That's some of the payments that we have to take. So it's not just these payments for water and sewer. So
What,
occupancy tax, absolutely. Especially at this time of the month, it's due by the 15th. We process all of those. We keep a spreadsheet on that. Retirees, they have to pay for insurance. They come through us and we process those. So there's a lot of payments.
We don't take the retirees' insurance out of their check? Because it comes from the state, I take it.
Well, retiree payments, if you are, if you work there for over 20 years, all of your benefits are paid. The city pays that on their behalf.
Okay.
But they have the option of adding their spouse, adding vision on their spouse or dental. Those payments they do have to make every month. So we have to process those payments.
They have
for
to
them.
manually do that every month.
Well, yeah, they bring a check to us, and we have to put it to the general ledger. We post the payment.
what portion
Man,
of this-
that seems like an archaic system, and I have the same, I grew up as a bureaucrat, and I don't have to do any of that. I mean, it's taken out of my retirement check. They process it electronically. They know how much it's going to be, and they process it.
I'm assuming. Go ahead.
I think one thing is it's the software products we have too. So I mean, when we get the new FOSS software package, if we move ahead, I think I've told all of you that opportunity we have, that could change operations. There's a lot of archaic things we do that should not be done.
Well,
What-
I think part
what-
of that is because.
Taking you down a rabbit hole. Continue on, I'm sorry, ma'am.
Well, I was going to say a lot of this is because the retirement comes through the North Carolina retirement system. Our benefits still continue to come through the city. They're not through them. So everybody, all of our benefits are paid MedCost or through the league. So it's kind of paid separately.
And your salaries are split a third water and sewer?
They are.
Okay.
So, and the other thing that I just want to kind of bring up and say that we might want to keep in mind is we have the issue with our recycling and yard debris. We currently do that with our bills. So we bill for water, sewer, recycle, yard debris. That's a service that we've always provided. We have a lot of residents call and say, I want to opt out of that, I don't want it. Well, it's not something that you can decide you want or you don't want. The problem is going to be if we decide to continue to offer that service, how are we going to collect that money? If that means another bill's got to go out every month by somebody in the billing department, we're going to have to retain somebody to do billing. And that's going to be a separate bill. And if we do that, how do you kind of encourage them to pay that bill? Because if they have water and sewer and they have garbage and it's all on one, then if they don't pay it for 2 months, then you turn that off till they come in and pay it. So you know you're getting your money. You can't call and say, GFL, don't pick up the recycle at this address because they haven't paid. So it's going to be more difficult to get these bills paid.
Is there any chance that, because Brunswick Electric, and this is a fixed amount, it's not like a calculated amount, is there a way that it could just be put on our Brunswick Electric bill? Since we're paying them to ask them, because that would be the cleanest, easiest, and wouldn't require any more staff.
I guess there's that possibility. They charge us a fee every month for processing and collecting our bills for us. And we could see if they would do that, if it's a possibility. Because the other option would be either increasing your taxes to collect that as an annual, and then we just continue to contract directly. I mean, anybody can call GFL and have a recycle bin and pay for that outside of our bill, but we have a better rate. But I don't know how anybody's going to get other than through an individual landscape company, somebody to do their debris. So that's some things to keep in mind as we're trying to decide whether we want to keep employees, how we're going to do the billing, things like that.
Are there other municipalities that are doing, are tagging it onto the tax bill?
Well, I know that Bowling Spring Lakes does not. I think we looked into that. There were several of them. I mean, most of the municipalities don't offer it as a service. I don't know. I think there's only 3 maybe in the county that offer the yard debris.
Trash pickup.
Will tell you, though, because it's early in my career, I learned this one. Never, ever take away trash of any kind, pickup away from those residents. They will go nuts. So.
Well, I can tell you, we get a lot of phone calls every week about my debris wasn't picked up. Why wasn't it picked up? My recycle wasn't picked up. Are they going to come? So our residents are looking
Teresa,
for that
that was
service.
just me.
Yesterday it wasn't, yeah.
Yeah. We have more confessions, huh?
So I guess that's basically all I have. Does anybody have any more questions?
Thank you, Teresa.
Mr. Carroll, you had a question about whether the county did evaluation of credit like we do. They do not. They have a flat deposit. It's $50 for home buyers and it's $150 for tenants or renters. So they don't do that check.
That's not my picture. Good morning. So now we're talking about Public Service Department. The department that, if anything physically gets done within the city, it is the Public Service Department that does it. In case anybody out there in Never Never Land is wondering what we do. Look around the town today, you can see the guys picking up hurricane debris. That's what we do. So we're going to talk about Public Service Department, water and streets specifically, because there really is no specified sewer department. While we're discussing this, I want you guys to think about the standard of service that Southport residents expect and the level of service that Public Service Department provides. throughout the city. That will still be expected to continue regardless of a water merger, sewer merger, or water and sewer merger. Again, I reiterate that the work that gets done around Southport is performed by the Public Service Department, not taken away from any other department. Please, I want to make that clear. So, with our current staffing levels, and again, I'm just referring to the Water and Streets Department, that there are 8 positions right now with the Water and Sewer Department, Streets Department. 2 positions, which would be 10, would have been the preventative maintenance crew, deemed a paving crew, which was never a paving crew, but I think that's just what everybody liked to call it because it was easier. Were not filled due to the merger discussions. I did not feel it was fair to bring positions in for a short time to potentially lose them. In the beginning of the year, we did hire 2 positions. One didn't work out. We never filled it back because of the merger discussions. And one heard about the merger and kicked rocks. You know what I'm saying? Because he was uncertain of his future in Southport, and I cannot say that I blame him.
So Tom, just to make sure I'm correct, this past year, the board voted to add 2 people for the paving, and they were going to buy a truck, and they were going to do some more paving. Not paving of whole roads, but more of that. Those 2 positions have not been filled, is that what you're telling me?
Those 2 positions have not been filled.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you.
sir. And the truck has been ordered, and it'll be here probably 2046. Heard that from a friend. Thank you. The Water Department really consists of 2 guys. They're both listed here as meter techs, but they do a certain great more amount of water, of work for the water. There's more to the water than just reading meters and making sure that Teresa gets her readings and the 462 rereads a day Teresa needs. There is daily required monitoring, daily required testing, sampling, state reporting and such, monthly testing and lead and copper samples, and a whole plethora of items that are attached to maintaining the water system. The only great thing is we don't treat it, so we don't have that headache. We just buy it and sell it. So there was 2 guys there. The second guys are backflow, cross-connection operator, inspector, which is what Lance was talking about as far as the irrigation guys. I think there's like around 900 irrigation meters within the city. The second division, so to speak, which is, you can say it's sewer, but it's not. It's streets department, consists of a supervisor and 5 technicians, one of those being a senior technician. And you can see the 2 vacant positions we have. What was the 2 guys we talked about, which is still being deemed a paving crew. But I will say that as far as the water guys go, there's so much more maintenance that the streets crew do to the water system that the 200% paid water guys, don't do. They don't do the general maintenance, the water leaks, the water taps, the irrigation taps, flushing, things like that, valve finding and turning. They don't do that. That's performed under the streets. Yes, sir.
But if the county was to take over the water, you wouldn't have that responsibility then, right?
Correct.
And so these 2 people that are listed here as the water guys, and you have other staff members who come in actually fix the pipes and stuff like that, all of that would be taken off their plate.
The metering and sampling, yes, sir.
Okay.
And repair, yes, sir.
And the repairs. And do we have any idea of percentage of their weekly, yearly time is spent on any of that stuff?
I have a slide a little bit further that kind of breaks things down.
Okay.
But I will say it does vary because sometimes there's not water leaks. Certain times of the year there's more building or more permits coming. It really depends on conditions and the number of, taps that are required.
So what I don't know, because I was thinking when we were talking about water guys, I was thinking about the guys that go out and dig up the street and fix the pipes as the people who might potentially go over to the county. But you're saying that our two water guys that we're paying for do the meter stuff. And I don't know if the county has that, do they need that? So we probably have to figure that out, because I had in my head a whole different job function that would potentially go over to them. And I just want to make sure, what I want to do is to help as all the employees that we can. So I just
Respect that, and that's one reason why I'm really glad we're having this discussion today, because like you just said, most people don't know what we do. But again, I think that'll be part of the negotiations.
Yeah, plus Tom's got, we talked about suggestions, because that's why we haven't filled vacancies, because if people, they may not want to go to the county, that's a decision. But if we can move people into some of these other positions that are not water sewer, then they can stay with us, because a lot of them, I know it might be surprising, like working with Tom Stanley.
Who'd have thunk it?
So we kept those positions vacant, but Addison during his presentation.
Have some ideas, you know what I'm saying, and yes, people love some Tom Stanley, and for some reason, I wish they'd talk to my wife, but some people don't want to leave me. Phil's not wanting to leave me. Here's this presentation. So along with the current staff, and you see at the bottom of this slide, there's a reason why I put building maintenance on there, which is a grounds position paid for by the general fund, but there's a reason why that's on there. Right now, that maintenance position has two employees, and one of them is currently vacant because that one employee went to code enforcement. And again, I felt, and that was like a month ago, just over a month ago, I felt it was unfair to fill that position right now until we figure out what's going on with the merger, because I do have someone who can slide into that position and retain his job for the city of Southport, which he loves. Too many buttons right now. And this just goes on to talk about the two current streets positions that are vacant. These positions, when Tom Z, his first day on the job here in Southport, I guess last February, we talked about, what's going on in Southport, what do we do in Southport. Tom has 35 years of municipal experience, which is a heck of a lot longer. Tom S. So we talked about what was going on, what was done, and how we did things. And his comment was, Jesus, Tom, you guys are more reactive than proactive. He's not wrong. You guys know he's not wrong. And but that is the nature of the beast a lot of times in municipality. It's reactive. Again, part of that is the 346 calls we get from Teresa and across the street and work orders. But his idea was to, hey, let's come up with a way to start doing some of these things that need to be done, like stormwater cleaning, better paving areas. Again, like Mayor Alt said, not whole streets, but better than just a little cold patch in the road in a pothole. We decided not to do this because, once those two guys left, merger starts coming. Again, unfair to fill those positions. I just wanted to throw that in. Now, here's our current workload right now, what's going on. And again, the workload that's here, that's 240 hours a week, does not include the water guys' responsibilities. The metering, the sampling, the phone calls back and forth to Teresa and CSR is not included in this. And you see there's a breakdown about how many hours a week these 6 guys use to do certain tasks, within the city. Obviously, from week to week, they may vary. That's just an average. They may spend 80 hours a week on sewer repairs or sewer taps at some point, manhole cleaning, lateral flushing. It just varies. And one thing I really want you guys to look at is the number of work orders we get. On an average month, we get 300 work orders. Throughout, that's 300 phone calls we get that require action. And on top, and not included that is another 300, 250 to 300 locates we get. Locates or 811 locates where somebody calls to, they want their water or sewer line located. And since the Highway 211 project has been going on, it has been exponential because they update. So it really keeps the guys busy doing that. And the bottom two, you can see there's a little bit of street sweeping in there. The bottom two, the sidewalks and stormwater, that's the minimal time we get to do on that because we're doing so much reactive work. These are the things that are lacking, which is the reason Tom Z's idea and helped me come up with, hey, we need the additional 2 guys to start doing some of these because of this. Yes, sir.
If I'm reading your chart correctly, if we give up the water and sewer, we would give up 3 FTEs up there. That equivalent of 3 FTEs, which you're currently using to do that function up there, the first 2 functions.
Right.
So I just want to make sure that it appears that right now you have 3 vacancies.
2 vacancies right now.
And 1 promotion. That's
One
been held.
promotion that wasn't done.
Okay,
yes.
so 2 vacancies.
Yes.
All right,
And obviously, I didn't go forward with a promotion because it was just
right, okay.
not feasible at the time. Hours vary from day to day and week to week. It's just an average of, just so you can see actually what gets done in the Southport. Now, if you move to my next slide, this kind of just gives a breakdown of how things are distributed. Half day is water and sewer. You got 3 people and 2 people. Sometimes it's collective. Sometimes it takes 5 people to do a job, depending on what it is. We got a water tap, digging the ground, there's a couple extra people. You have a sewer repair or sewer tap, there's a couple extra people. And then you have the days where a couple guys can break away to work on these work orders. One guy breaks away, he pretty much does the locating a lot. So it's just a collective overall average of how the work week is broken down.
Tom, the work orders, are they primarily water and sewer, or are they trees down, or
They-
what are
they-
you seeing?
I would say probably a third to a half are water and sewer, but there's a whole lot more that's done. Unfortunately, the way it's broken down now is pretty much by address. We can't break it down, and I'm sure there's software that can break it down to this was a water call, this was a sewer call, this was somebody's trash can, oh, my neighbor's trash, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? It's not broken down that way, it's broken down by address. But there will be a great number that will be reduced by merging water and sewer, which will free up time to do this proactive stuff that needs to be done.
Real quick, did we have any water and sewer people cleaning up the cemeteries?
No,
Never?
no. Have there been? Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I've been out there cleaning up the cemeteries, and I'm happy to do so. I don't know why, it's a habit. You guys have overwhelmed me with buttons. So if we went forward with a complete water and sewer merger, these are just a layout of the number of people that would be required to do each job. So you got the paving jobs and stormwater repair. You see a number of 5 guys there. You have to have people on the job. You have to have operator, truck driver, maybe moving stone, asphalt. At times you may need 2 truck drivers, one to get rid of the old asphalt, one who's bringing in the new asphalt in 2046 when the new dump truck gets here. And then you got a ground man, and a foreman to do the job. Pretty much same thing with stormwater. And then you got stormwater cleaning. You can break up. 3 guys do the storm drain cleaning, while 2 guys repair street signs, straighten up street signs, which is a constant battle in Southport, be it weather or drivers. And then again, we could dedicate more people to sidewalk repairs. When I'm talking about sidewalk, just repairing sections, not like doing entire complete blocks of sidewalk. Looked like you
I'm
wanted to say something.
I'm jumping ahead, I know, but I commend you and I commend Teresa for holding positions that are open. I think this is a great idea. My question to you is, there was much discussion last budget cycle about the 2 employees that were going to be hired, that they were going to be asphalt trained when they came here, as opposed to us training them. If we were to have the water guys decide they want to stay, and you put them in those positions, they're not asphalt trained people, are they not? And so are we, how do we spent the money to get more asphalt on the ground, and are we going to be able to accomplish that with somebody who doesn't have that skill set?
Good. Let me put it to you as boldly as we can. Especially as I've been experienced over the past several years, people leaving and coming back. I can't get a laborer off the street. No, I mean, I'm saying it's going to be hard to get people because people are just not dying to come to work. And that's a big problem, not just with Southport, but it's everywhere. You can't get laborers or people who want to work, much less experienced people in the field. It's actually ridiculous.
So nobody has experience when they come in.
Okay, so before you decided to cancel or postpone those filling of those slots, there was a period of time that position was open, and you weren't able to get people to come in to do that?
It is, unless you want to...
Lasted, what, a week?
Yes. Unless you want to cough up some money to get the right experienced people in here, it's going to be really tough. It really is, because anyone with experience is going to want to prime. And that is a big problem. They're going to want to prime that, Southport's probably not willing or unable to pay.
Mr. Mayor, there's a son of Southport, for lack of a better term, who grew up here, who owns an asphalt company in another area, who might be someone who we could ask to come help train some of our people that are already here and would consider doing so.
One of the other things to answer about the training, I've also done some moonlighting back in the day on paving crews, running paving crews and all that stuff. So with anybody that was brought in on paving, even with training the current employees on how to do it, that was part of the things that I was going to be doing with those new employees and creating that new crew to train them on how to do that stuff.
Thank
Question here.
you. Go ahead.
And I was going to get to that.
When you bring in new employees or you transfer employees, you're automatically going to have a training cost, and it's going to take a period of time to get them up to where they can perform all the essential functions of the job. Do you have any idea how long that's going to take? I guess it's going to depend on what job it is and all the things that person has to do, but that is something that I think people forget or they don't understand. When you bring in people, there is a ramp-up period of time, and that costs money to get them there because of the lack of efficiencies and whatnot.
Yes, yeah, exactly. It'll take a while, and it'll be slow going. And pretty much at this point, I know how to do everything in Southport except the full hot patch paving. The stuff we put out now, it lasts, but it's not what really needs to be done with Southport.
Tom, thank you, because that explains the gap that was going in my head, is that I could see where you're going with this whole discussion, and I didn't want to fill a position, and then we had an expectation a year ago that something was going to happen, and it was never going to happen. But it is going to happen because we have the capacity in-house to do the training to get us to wherever that is. We just have to figure out what's that, as Frank would say, what's that timeline to get somebody from currently who works in the city, who knows most of the in and outs of what's happening, more or less. They just have to have some more training on the technical aspects of laying asphalt and doing it correctly, so we don't have the reverse speed bumps that we have now. Okay.
And part of that, the discussion that I had with Tom with creating those positions, part of the discussion I had with Tom with creating those positions and doing the paving with the hot mix, not the cold mix, was explaining to him how to do it and getting him introductory trained on the program so that he got it in his head that, yeah, I can grasp this enough to teach the guys how to do it with your help.
Down the road, once you do that, you're going to have actually a more valuable, you're actually going to have a more valuable employee because their skill sets are going to be greater. Because they're going to be able to do a whole lot more things. They're going to be a lot more versatile.
And that's the, and Tom and I, we kind of argued a little bit back and forth about, adding the people last year. I wasn't a fan of it because I know the flavor of the board and I know Southport. You know what I'm saying? But he convinced me, told me the program. I'm like, shoot, we can get on to this and we'll go for it. And again, because of this merger, it just, we backed off and the lack of getting skilled help. Again, I'm a quote Lo Davis for a minute. She said one time at a board meeting, and you can reel back the footage, and this is nothing against Southport, but you pay peanuts, you get monkeys, and it's hard to pull the people in for that.
Goes to my thought of that, once we get these people up to speed, we'll have to make sure that the job function that they're doing, their pay is comparable to the region, rather than waiting for another 5 years and we do a whole review of pay again. So just keep that in the back of your head, that let's try to figure out as we go along. So by a year from now, we may have to adjust pay for those people who are trained in that stuff.
And Mr. Lay was right. There is going to be a margin of error and a margin of time for training and getting a program up to speed. And one of the slowing factors right now is getting a street-worthy, highway-worthy dump truck, which apparently they're making from scratch somewhere. Hot metal and ash, I don't know, but you just can't get it. But yes, thank you, Mr. Lay, for bringing up that point. So. That totally messed things up. Not major. So the proposed work week with a full merger really doesn't change a lot. It just takes away the water and sewer aspect of it and adds more emphasis to the things that are not getting done, or to the things that are being reactively done now. Your paving, your stormwater repair, stormwater prep and sidewalk repair, stormwater cleaning, some street sign repair, and then we'll still have the work orders come in. I'd say still probably 150 work orders a month come in, and sweep and street sweeping and stuff. And that's not it's just hey, Southport citizens are needy, and they expect a certain level of service that they pay for.
So if it wasn't for Teresa, we could cut your staff by 3/4?
I'm sorry, Teresa. Collateral damage, Teresa. But and again, it's the phone calls and citizens, because they pay for and expect a level of service that has been given to them 40 years, and I in no way, shape, or form plan to decrease my ability to serve the city of Southport citizens if that means I have to spend more time with my boots in the dirt. Then I'll do so, whatever it takes to get things going. Oh, you want me? Dad, I pulled that from my heart. Now, what I was saying was, Southport people expect a certain level of care, and regardless of what happens with this merger, if I end up losing some staff, if Teresa ends up losing some staff, if I have to put my boots in the ground more than what I do now, I will do whatever it takes to make sure that the citizens still retain their level of service they expect and deserve.
Tom Stanley is known for his customer service and how fast he gets to the problem.
So true. And Tom, to that point, if we do the full merger, right now, when we're driving down Howe Street at an early time in the morning, on a morning where we have pipes frozen and we see water coming out of the street, we call City of Southport. You guys get out there very quickly. I've seen it within 20 minutes. You guys are out at the scene, digging up, finding it, on very, very cold mornings, I might add. when we give this to the county, then we call the county and the county sends the guy? How long are we looking at for the county to get there versus, does county
What-
have somebody standing by in Southport for us, waiting to go? How does that work?
I'll tell you, before Mr. Stone speaks on this, I will tell you, there's been times, and even past weeks, where there have been leaks on the county line up not Rob Gandy Boulevard, but on the other side of Rob Gandy Boulevard on East Leonard Street. And I have contacts with the county utility department, and they get out here. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you there's going to be a 15-minute or 5-minute response time like City of Southport, but I have had zero problems getting the county out here to take care of problems that are on their side.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
We have on-call technicians 24/7, 365, and they currently, after hours, they're dispatched from the utility plants that have 24-hour staff. And, I don't know where the closest one to Southport is, but it wouldn't be far away.
Again, because we're so small, our reaction time is a little greater, but I have never, with my contacts and rapport I've had with the county, I've never had a problem getting anybody out here to take care of their issues. And if they needed Tom Stanley before they got there, I can assure you Tom Stanley will be there with his set of skills, like Liam Neeson, to assist in any way I can.
No. He's telling the truth. Because if there's a hole and there's a water leak, Tom will get down and he'll make everybody else watch him do the work. So
I don't know. Thank you, Alderman Sanders. I don't know how previous directors were. I know how my director was, and if my guys have to be out in it, by damn sure I'm going to be out in it too. That's just what I do. You know what I mean? I mean that's my thought. From previous training, I have the mindset that no man's left behind. So if my guys need me, if they're out here, by damn golly, I'm going to be out here with them. And that's just what I do.
So I know you're going to answer this question, and I've read through. I'm sorry, Tom. I've read through this, and there's way too many numbers. But I guess one of my questions is, we got X number of people today, and after the merger, we're going to either lose some to the county or retain them. So just dumb that down for me. We've got, and who's losing jobs?
Here's what we got. I'm just going to throw that to the side and let me just be Tom Stanley. So right now, of those 6 positions, okay, I have 8 positions, my apologies. I have 2 positions that are paid 100% out of the water and sewer fund, or water and sewer fund. I have the other 6 positions that are 60% water, 40% streets. Okay.
6. You said 6.
Yes, sir. Right now, I have. I need to, for the streets crew that'll continue to give Southport citizens the level of service they expect and deserve. I need 5 guys to do that. And if I need to be 6, 5, 4, 3, I will be so. Then I have 1 facility maintenance position that is open, not filled. I do have 1 guy there. I have 1 grounds position where one of my guys has went out with major surgery and is probably not going to be coming back, not just because of surgery, because it was time for him to retire. So I think he's going to take this time to retire. So there's potentially 1 position there that could be filled. That leaves me down to 1 guy that the city could allow me to find a position for, or potentially go to the county or decide, something else. Again, those are decisions that the board's going to have to make. I will do my dangest to keep you informed as much as I can. As you know, my reputation is for doing so. Mr. Lay, if you do not know me, you will eventually and understand. But I would be remiss to say that every damn one of my guys wants to stay in Southport.
Quick, I think you still need to address future, your last slide addition. Yeah, because that's important to the decision that the board has to make, because we have quite a few things coming up.
Two things to consider, and that's your, wherever I threw it, that's the, I wrote it, you have the slide, it's for things to consider. As you guys know, we had a presentation, I guess it was Friday, from High Caps with a building assessment. No, I will not tell you that, but with the building assessment that just come through, you guys have a book that's the size of the glossary of the Britannica encyclopedias. So there's a number of projects there that could potentially be done by the current staff. And it's going to be an ongoing process. And you heard me say that right now we have 2 facility maintenance positions. One is filled, one is vacant, which I hope to fill with one of my guys who is willing to do so. But it may be a potential that if the guys I have now are qualified and wanting to do it, that they could stay on to start doing some of these maintenance items, as well as the second item is right now we're doing the stormwater mapping and survey. Matter of fact, W.K. Dixon is out there right now. I saw him steal a hammer out the back of my truck earlier. So that is going to potentially bring up some more work that can be done. You know, not only contractor work like major repairs or adding storm drains and stormwater pipes, but it will require, you know, so staffing. So it's potential that, you know, that staffing could stay to do so with that. Again, I'm giving you what I feel, you know, is my thoughts and Tom Z's thoughts. Thankful for him to help me with this and figure this out with his experience. But really, the burden is on you. No pressure. Have questions, you know.
You
know.
don't have an assistant planning, you don't have an assistant.
No, when I was made assistant director, I think it was like 2019, 2020, 21, budget season come up or whatever it was, and then when David Fox retired, I didn't want an assistant, didn't need an assistant. You know, I gave the assistant position up. It was kind of a compromise to try and get some city engineers in here that I've been complaining about for years if you roll the footage back. That was part of that, and that first year it was never hired. Part of the 3/4 of the second year was never hired, and now, thankfully, you know, with the good decision of the board that they decided to bring on some city engineers to help with these projects and ongoing things. So I've dropped positions, you know, and we've added positions, and you know, you want to get to, you know, the number of employees of public services. You know, there was several years ago that we had 3 mechanics in the garage. That is now 2 mechanics. You know, that position was kind of forfeited. I made that decision based on, I did ask for the decision back because it was kind of a split pay, but based on the job load that was in there, and don't get me wrong, it's a lot, but we have a lot of leased vehicles now, and basically that's just maintenance items. You know, there's not a lot of breakdowns on fleet, but we still have the great number of breakdowns on, you know, lawn equipment and heavy equipment and stuff like that. So that I did reduce my staff by that. You know, I did reduce my staff by not hiring an assistant director. So I don't want anybody out there thinking that public services just has these people out there willy-nilly just to fill a damn warm seat. That's not what happens. Mayor, are you sure?
Oh, there'll be questions at budget time, but yes, none right now, sir.
That's fine. That's fine. We're good with that. One thing I did want to touch on is, you know, we have a water storage agreement with Brunswick County. Right now, based on state regulations, you have to have 50% of your average daily capacity in reserve. For if something hits the fan, you know, you have to have your reserve capacity that the residents can use. Up till 2021, we had 236,800 gallons. The state kind of spanked us and said, hey, you need some more storage. So we entered the agreement with Brunswick County in July of 2021. We asked for 230,000 gallons. We didn't need it at the time, so we compromised, made the deal, and got 115,000 gallons with the potential to purchase the other storage of 115,000 gallons by December of 2023, December 31st, 2023. I did have discussions with Brunswick County regarding that last year. We come up with kind of the new agreement, but again, because of the merger, we did not do so. And I believe Manager Stone and our city manager kind of talked about it and said, yeah, you know what, we might be able to extend that agreement date, because what they're doing is they're just holding capacity, and if we decide to keep the water, we really need to move on this, because here's what's going to happen. If we keep the water, we need this capacity. We sort of have the agreement in place. The money is in the budget to pay full if we want to $460,000. If we don't lose it, I can guarantee you that there's enough developments coming that eventually Brunswick County will have to sell that capacity to somebody else. So that's something else to keep in consideration. If you decide to keep the water system, we need to jump on this. If not, it's not something we have to worry about. And I will touch one last thing I have to say is, let's talk about the water tower. I heard Lance bring it up earlier. The water tower is, we do have a maintenance contract with Southern Corrosion, who does the maintenance for it yearly. This year we paid around $11,000. It goes up about 10% a year, and that covers everything to do with the tank. 2025, they're going to have to paint it. They have to flush it. You have to drain it. They have to seal it. But that is covered with that 10, 11, 12 as time goes on. So it's not like it's going to be a great expense, but by paying that expense, saves a butt ton of money, because it's probably a $50,000 job to paint it. Just something to keep in mind. And I will say, Mr. Stone, that it is completely disconnected from the water system with zero connections to it, because I assure you there will be a mutiny if something happens at that water tower. Any other questions? I'm rambling, and I apologize.
Thank you, sir. We're up to decision time, huh?
Yeah, I mean, there's two options. It's late, I realize that. I mean, you could either digest all this, and then we meet again just to deal with this, or you could start talking about this now. That's up to you, because it's a lot of information, especially for the new board members. But again, if I don't have some of these answers, we can't start them.
Has anybody got something pressing they have to run off into? At what, 1:15? Oh, we'll be done by then.
I just wanted to make sure.
All right.
Well, I don't know to digest it. I kind of like the idea of digesting it. Y'all,
I'd like to get discussion out there. You not necessarily need to make any decisions, but I mean,
For example, are you going to merge the water? I would think that might be, that's easy. So some of these you might be able to just, oh, yeah, well, that's a no-brainer kind of thing, so.
So, unless I hear an objection from somebody, we'll go run down these, each one. We'll decide whether we want to vote on that one today. If not, we'll come back and vote on that particular item later on. But some of these we could actually knock out today and allow the city and the county to start moving forward. Does that sound okay with everybody? Okay. All right, so so the first one is, should the water be merged with the county? So is there a motion to consider that?
I'd make a motion that we merge the water with the county.
Is there a second? So we have a motion and we have a second. So now we're in the discussion phase.
So we got to talk about the revenue piece of making sure that our city staff are still paid if if and when we give up both water and sewer. Ad valorem taxes is an option that we talked about. We talked about potentially finding some other revenue source, but I don't know what other revenue source we could be looking towards.
But that will all be a part of the proposed budget. That'll be up to us to put those options together.
Okay, so at this time, if we vote on that, we aren't leaving ourselves out in the wind. We can still have time to figure out what that looks like.
And I think the thing about merging the water also is that the rates will come down. So while it looks like we're losing revenue, the rates are coming down for citizens. So,
And then I guess the last piece of that is the recycling and garbage, the recycling and the pickup there that we got to, I guess, talk to Brunswick Electric to see
Well,
if they can add that.
The wonderful county manager sent me a text and said, just put it on your tax bill. So I'm like, oh, well, so then we won't have to worry about BEMC. So thank you, sir.
Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor of moving forward with that, say aye and raise your hand, please.
Aye.
It's unanimous, thank you. Next one up is reallocate the $1.263 million of ARPA funds out of the water sewer to the general fund. Lance, I need some clarification on that. I thought I heard you say that that money was not, is in a separate line item. It is not in the $12 million. Is that correct?
That's correct. It is not in the 12 million.
I just don't want this sentence to imply that we've already put the money into the sewer fund and now pulling it out.
It's not in the sewer fund proper, but it is designated for use for the wastewater treatment facility expansion. So absent a resolution to any other effect, we can't use that money for anything right now except for to put toward the wastewater facility expansion that we're not going to participate in.
So this discussion, please correct me if I've got this wrong, we could vote today to move it someplace else.
We can.
But the issue is, it's now designated water sewer.
It's designated waste, yes, sir. Wastewater
So
expansion.
that's part of the negotiate, the manager would have to go to this county manager to negotiate that point?
No, no,
Not for these ARPA funds?
no. It's
I
okay.
thought,
It's completely standalone.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just
Bucket
want to
of
make sure that the language there could be interpreted as it's totally designated and we're jumping the gun on the negotiation part of it.
no.
Okay.
I think, and Lance, just, we can just move this to the general fund. Do we have to have a purpose? Does the motion need to say a purpose?
No, it
Just
doesn't.
leave it
A
at,
decision by federal law must be made in '24 of how it will be used and spent by '26. That's the
All
federal
right,
law.
but we have a couple of months we could do that in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think,
Yeah.
so I think we just make a motion to go ahead and move the 1.263 million of ARPA funds to the general fund for a decision that would
For
be.
decision as to what it's going to be actually used for
Yes,
later on.
later this year, yep.
Just to get into the right line item.
Yep.
So that's the motion. Is there a second to that motion? There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Karen? Okay, all right. All those in favor say aye and raise your hand, please. It's unanimous. Let's move on to the next one. That would be, I guess, C, which is positions to keep with the county, the city, and those that go to the county. I'm not sure that we're at a position to do that. Okay, all right. All right, we're gonna kick that one down the road a little bit. And then D, the use of the fund balance. Set aside funds to pave roads after the sewer projects. So I'm a little confused on that sentence. If we give the sewer to the county and they dig up a road to fix a sewer, they have to pave it like they do every place else. Am I not correct? That would be just part of the cost of doing it.
Except that if we finish those projects, then we're going to have to do it, and we're still not.
So you're talking about just for the projects, that between now and the time that it's taken over, if we dig any streets, we can take the money out of that. That I can track pretty easily.
Come up with an estimate, I think.
For the streets within the sewer replacement project, it's about 1.3 million to resurface them afterwards.
That you're expecting you're going to have to dig up at least that much asphalt to.
That would be to pave the street curb to curb after the project is complete. On that, it's about 3.1 miles of street that's having sewer replaced.
Because we've delayed a lot of road projects because of these sewer projects. So
Right.
once we're ready to repave because the sewer's done, let's repave the road.
So I guess Tom Z, my question was, and we've talked about this, we can't pave anything because we don't know what we're going to dig up. Are we at the point now that we pretty much know what we're going to have to dig up?
Yes.
And can we have, not for today, but can we have some idea in the near future what roads will have to be dug up so that we can actually start targeting the roads that won't be dug up to actually fix something?
The program is actually, I'm working on it now, and we're looking at a February or March presentation to the board.
That would be terrific.
So today, can we have a conversation about the rates, the water sewer rates? I would like for us to go ahead and reduce the water sewer rates to the amount, maybe not match the county as I suggested earlier, but at least to the amount less the debt service that we had anticipated. We're not going to have the debt service, so we should stop collecting for that.
Are you making a motion to do that?
Yeah.
I know it's long-winded, but the concept there?
Yeah. So I guess the motion is to instruct city staff to determine what that rate, what the rate would be for water sewer less the debt service, and go ahead and implement that moving forward.
Is there a second to that motion? Okay. We have a tie. And now we're at the discussion phase. Any discussion on this?
It's the only,
Say, I think it'll be applied to the sewer because the debt service was for the sewer.
And then do we need to get permission to offset that with the fund balance? No, okay. 'Cause that's all.
no, because yeah. And then so encourage the city, I'd like to instruct the city manager to reach out to the LGC to find out if we can use fund balance to reduce our rates even further.
Glad to, because every time I turn around where I think I don't, I do.
So barring the LGC or some other factor that we do not know, we're asking the manager to go forward with that.
I think that the motion that's on the table doesn't require anything from the LGC, because all we're doing is reducing our rates to offset the debt service. To go further than that and actually eat away at the general fund would require LGC approval, it sounds like. And that's not what I'm suggesting now. I'm just asking her to reach out to him to see if that's something we could do.
But the manager will check to make sure that we're not stumbling. Okay.
Question.
Frank?
If we do reduce the rates, when would that go into effect?
LGC approves, then I'd probably have to just come back to you to solidify it and then talk to the county again, but
Point out one distinction. If you remember from our earlier conversation, the fund balance is currently growing by about 1.6 million a year. I'm not sure that it's the same thing as dipping into the fund balance to say that grows at zero. It may not be an LGC conversation if we're not taking money out of the pot and putting it back someplace else. If we're simply reducing the amount of growth.
except that we better check.
We
Because
should check.
LGC can be pretty strict.
And that's the motion on the table, is what Lance is to really just go back to zero. You know, it's not growing, it's not going down, it's maintaining.
We call that revenue neutral.
Correct.
The other, one other point just to make, just not that it affects your motion or anything, but this county's rate structure is far more complicated than our rate structure is. So Actually, if there were a decision to go to county rates and mirror them, that is a much more difficult transition to make than simply calculating a new number for our current structure and changing that. So, thank you.
Madam Clerk, do you have any idea what the motion is? Okay.
Who knows? So the motion on the table is to instruct city staff to determine what the new rate would be, less the additional $1.6 million that's being added to the fund balance sewer fund balance every year, and reduce the rates accordingly.
Okay. And the two of you that tied here, you're both okay with that way it's stated now? All right. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye and raise your hand, please. Aye. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. This looks like it's, we could discuss at a later time unless I hear otherwise.
Yeah, because once I know about the rates, we could come back to you with offsetting loans, and plus we'll know what loans. And then the collection of other fees is just, do you want us to stay collecting what we collect now, is really what it is. You're not going to get rid of a fee that we're not going to collect, I think is the question. And then
Sure, what, you mean once we hand over the sewer?
Yeah, like golf, I would assume all that is going to stay with collection through us.
Yes. The only thing we wouldn't be collecting is I always get the wrong term, when you build a new house and you connect the fees, the development fees, we wouldn't be collecting that any longer.
And then just the where payments are to be made, whether you're going to have some kind of a substation in Southport for collection, or everybody's going to Bolivia.
That's yet to be decided. And just for, while we're on this topic, the Supreme Court is taking up development fees to decide whether or not you can actually do them. They've just decided to take that case in the last week. All right, so we're at F, which is the mayor's comments. My comment is, this has been a very enjoyable day.
Oh, liar.
No. This has been professional. This has been, everybody's come in here. They know what they were talking about. We've all worked hard on this. Great questions, great everything. I'm really happy that this day has turned out this way. And that's all I have. So, Alderman Mosteller, your thoughts?
To reiterate, staff, all of y'all, this is awesome. Thank you so much.
Alderman Carroll. Alderman Lay. Alderman Kelly.
I just wanted to thank the city staff and Brunswick Electric for last night, overnight, jumping on all the issues that came up quickly and efficiently and making sure that we were good to go again as quickly as possible.
Alderman Spencer.
I want to thank all the staff that has given us some options. Clearly, you care about the people that you work around, and I appreciate that. We're going to do the best we can to protect them.
And I have one last thing. Madam Clerk, because we're technically challenged, Alderman Davis chimed in that she wanted to be counted in the very first motion that we made, which was for the city attorney. She wanted to be counted as a yay for that. Okay?
Can I just say real quick?
Yes, ma'am.
I just, as was said before, you guys did a yeoman's job. You will never know how many hours we spent together trying to come up with what are the issues, what are the problems, putting solutions together. So bravo to all of you. And thank you for sticking around this long.
And Mr. Stone, it's always a pleasure to have you in the audience and interact with you. Thank you very much. And with that, I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor? Thank you. Unanimous.